Okay, we're off. We are off. Welcome to the Central Committee stream with your host Mike from PA. We are live once again. How is everybody doing today? Welcome on in. For supposed lefted, you sure are right a lot. Oh gosh. How is everybody doing today on the Central Committee stream? Seth Myers shouted out Hassan Piker. I think I saw this too. It's going to be a hell of a morning. Whew. The entire abundance movement is trying to promote the Sam Cedar, a clip from the Sam Cedar debate to say Sam Cedar lost the debate, as opposed to Ezra Clott, Nottoway Plantation, the largest remaining antebellum mansion in the South, caught fire. Some editor has to do an Ezra takedown with receipts from yesterday. It would blow up. Yeah, that would probably be a good idea. It's very funny because, like, one of the things that I noticed about it is Ezra Klein won't answer any questions. And then he proposed some questions to Sam, which was a debate tactic. Sam was not trying to have a debate. He was trying to discuss the ideas and try to get Ezra to explain his ideas. Ezra cannot explain them because the truth is too embarrassing. And the thing about Ezra Klein is he is a careerist social climber, okay? And he knows that if he says the answers that are the true answers on the Samuel Cedar show, everybody will hate him on the Samuel Cedar show, and the left will be correct. The abundance people going like, I can't believe the left is attacking us, I'm so surprised, is a tactic. They're trying to make themselves victims, so that when they go on the offense, they can pretend like we were wanting to work with you. And like, that's the reality. The reality is this was always the strategy from the beginning. The strategy of what the abundance movement is basically to pursue the Labour Party from the UK strategy. That's what they're pursuing. And I just posted this morning. Maybe you should read his book. Yeah, his book of incredible insights. Notice that none of the centrist Democrats ever talk about seeing their political strategy fully implemented, including a purge of the left and how it is utter electoral suicide. Meanwhile, in Mexico, we see the left strategy implemented and it leads to an 80% approval rating. Like, this is the reality. And, you know, obviously, chat, I think we're getting to an era of politics. How do I describe this era of politics? How do I describe this era of politics to everybody? We are in the do you have guns era of politics. That is the era of politics we are in. We are no longer in a we're debating with people point. I think every centrist Democrat knows that their politics are not successful or popular. They know that. Okay? Like, this is something that happened in the Republicans circa 2005. Circa 2005, the Republicans realized that they had no political path to a majoritarian position with their actual policies. Like, if the voters fully understood their policies, they would not support them. And the Republican Party and the Republican Party elite had that realization. Liberals are having the same realization. Liberals are now having the same realization that they're unpopular and their policies are unpopular and that people do not support them. And the other realization they're having is that people do support the left. Okay, so what does that mean? That means the left has to be contained. And every single time there is an avatar or a representative of the left, that person needs to be tarred and feathered. They need to have their personal, credibility attacked. They need to be, criminalized. They need to be, excommunicated from any kind of center-left party. That is the new strategy. And so we're entering a profound anti-democratic era. And I've actually been talking about this for a very, very long time on this stream, that this is exactly what would happen. If you've been here for a long time, you know that I've been saying this for a long time. You know that I have been talking about how centrists always ally with fascists. I've used many historical examples, the most evocative being the Center Party in Nazi Germany. You know, it's an unspoken assumption that conservatives side with fascists. Everybody understands that. It's not a surprise, okay? Monarchists, conservatives, the military-industrial complex, they're all going to side with the fascists. We don't even need to waste any time. I don't think anyone's confused on that. But centrists always side with fascists. And in fact, centrists are the most undemocratic group of people in society. This is something that I've been talking about since the very, very, very beginning of my stream. Centrists are more hostile to democracy, not extremists. So do social democrats historically. It's more mixed, Matthew. But I will say that the social democrats siding with the right in Germany is probably why our world is fucked, to be honest. I don't think all social democrats always side with the fascists, but that specific instance is incredibly dominant. Now, there's other examples where it goes the opposite way. But you know, I think the most important historical example is something to learn from, right? And there was a poll done of every country, and it says percentage of people who say democracy is a very good system. Centrists think it's a bad system. Continent-wide, only 42% of centrists view democracy as a good system. In the United States, it's just 33%. Only the left in America supports democracy. This is literally true. Centrists are the least likely to support free and fair elections. Percentage of people who say choosing a leader in a free election is an essential feature of democracy. Centrists are the least likely to support liberal institutions. Percentage of people who say civil rights that protect people's liberty from state oppression is an essential feature of democracy. Only like 25% of American centrists agree. Centrists are more supportive of authoritarianism, except for the far right. Percentage of people who say a strong leader who does not have to bother with the legislature is fairly good or very good. 40% of centrists in the United States. Now, this is back in 2018. I'm sure it's worse now. Centrists are fascists. Centrists are the most likely to support a strongman leader. This is all just facts that I've been talking about for a very, very long time on my stream. This is the way it is. That's why we're living in this society. That's why Ezra Klein is cozying up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Oh, yeah. What if the German communists won 1919? Then communism would have won. It's not very complicated. It's not very complicated. Germany plus the Soviet Union equals GG for capitalism. Notice that none of the centrist Democrats ever... So, like, look at Keir Starmer's favorability among Labour voters has fallen sharply in the last month. All Britons, 62% unfavorable, 33% unfavorable among 2024 Labor. That's insane. These are people who voted for Labor parties. 48% disapproval with people who voted for Lib Dem, 88% with people who voted Conservative, and 93% disapprove of the people who voted Reform. Not only is he losing his base, he's also extremely unpopular with the right wing. So the entire Keir Starmer strategy of I'm going to attack right and punch left has led to the far right hates him even more. The Tories don't like him. Reform hates him. So being a right winger, being anti-immigrant, being, you know, pro-privatization, implementing reform and conservative policies has made him more unpopular with them, not less. Meanwhile, it has hemorrhaged his own side. Hassan at Oxford Union finally dropped. Oh, hell yeah, dude. Oh, hell yeah. I say this
jokingly, but Donald Trump is white man's Obama.
Oh, hell yeah. And like, this reality, this like the fact that we're seeing this play out right in front of us. Meanwhile, look at Mexico. Mexico has the left-wing strategy that I want to pursue, at least an 80% approval rating. Like, this is the thing that really drives me insane, is that I don't really understand how people can argue another. At this point, I've fully explored all the objections, and I'm just like, okay, you're irrational. None of your thoughts make any sense. You know, and so we're stuck. You know, we're stuck. A week before this episode was filmed, Oxford was caught editing the comments of pro-Palestinian speakers. Yeah, I saw that. The Mexican right wings and libs are hilarious. Yeah, they all speak English and they're like, she's taking away democracy. Guys, listen to how she's attacking democracy in Mexico. She's making the judges elected. Isn't that so undemocratic? It's an attack on democracy the way she's making judges elected. You don't think DSA should break off from the Democrats? The problem is the DSA isn't important enough to break off from the Democrats. I love DSA, but it doesn't have, it isn't popular enough. You need a figurehead who does it, not an institution. You need a figurehead. You need a leader. This is what people don't, this is what a lot of this is why anarchism is fucking useless, because they're like, I don't believe in leaders. And then it's like, well, people parasocially relate to individuals. People listen to stories, not syllogisms. And so like, that's what I really hate about it, because it's just like so useless as far as human psychology. And look at what the Republicans are proposing. Look how unpopular it is.
What do Americans think of these proposed potential cuts to Medicaid we're looking at here?
The politics of this are so bad, it literally blows my mind. That is what the American people think of this. Major spending cuts to Medicaid. Look at this, 76% opposed, just 24% favor major federal spending cuts to Medicaid. To give you an idea of how big this 76% is, in a separate poll I looked at it, George Washington's favorable rating is 78%. Basically, the exact same percentage of Americans who are opposed to major cuts to Medicaid on the federal level. As I said, the politics of this are so extremely bad, it blows my mind, Kate.
That is overall. What about amongst Republicans? Because Republicans are obviously the party in the majority and advancing this need to cut some $880 million from Medicaid.
Okay, so we see this 76% overall. You see it over here. Oppose major spending cuts to Medicaid on the federal level. You get 95% of Democrats opposed, 79% of independents, and you even get a majority of Republicans, 55% oppose major spending cuts to Medicaid. This, simply put, is not popular on any part of the aisle. From the left all the way to the right, the opposition is in the majority. When you get a majority of Republicans, a majority of independents, a majority of Democrats to agree on anything, you know that is where the American public stands, and they stand strongly. And on this particular issue, they stand very strongly opposing major spending cuts to Medicaid. The politics of this, simply put, are atrocious.
What do Americans think of these proposed potential cuts to Medicaid we're looking at here?
The politics of this are so bad, it literally blows.
I mean, again, do you think it's going to stop the Republicans? Do you think it's going to... This is the thing that's really, really, really interesting about this point is, do you think it stops the Republicans just because they see a bad poll result? Do you think people like tax cuts on the rich? It literally blows his mind, Chad. His mind is exploding. And this is the reality that we now face. God. Where do you see after 4 years of this bullshit? My biggest fear is the left is going to be suppressed. We're already suppressed. We're already being suppressed. I mean, abundance is clearly the attempt to just keep doing what the Democratic Party has always been doing. It's just a recapitulation of the same shit, just with a we're going to fully focus on purging the left. That's all it is. Voting Democrat at this point is fucking idiotic. I don't know what else to say. It is fucking idiotic. We need to start our own party. The sooner, the fucking better. I mean, I guess, obviously a midterm is probably not the year to launch it. Sam Cedar was nice in his talk with Klein, and his Bundist Andes are attacking him relentlessly. Yes, I know. Because I understand what Sam Cedar has always fought with me, which is that if you are center-left, the Democratic Party despises you. I hope Sam Cedar learns a lesson. He won't. All right, let's... Bernie Sanders on Colbert. Let's start off with that. Let's start off when billion is all they I mean, like, it's really hard to... What's happening to you guys? What's happening to you people? I'm starting to feel like, my community, Hassan's community, a few other oases in the desert, because it's just like the liberalism is, people are holding on to it for some reason, and I don't understand it. We're only spending 2.7 billion on these incredibly important things that touch every single one of us. Like, cancer is probably the way you're going to die if it's not a heart attack. Why aren't we pouring $1 trillion into a year into this shit? Why aren't we exploring every single promising compound and every single promising medical device and surgical strategy? Why aren't we trying to figure out how to create a real artificial heart or just any kind of like what's going on? We're just incapable of caring about anything that matters. And the venality and the pettiness of everyone's politics is just pathetic. It's aggravating, but then at the same time, it's like, how small are you people? There is a profound hatred of setting up common sense, small investments to improve everyone's life. It's just crazy. I do think that there is something wrong with the human subjectivity, which is stretching toward self-annihilation, as a chatter just put it. I legitimately think that's what it is. I really can't come up with any other plausible, explanation for it. I guess I'm trapped in my own subjectivity. I really am lucky in that things happen to me in such a way, in such a sequence, and I had a certain type of level of intelligence and wherewithal to learn, and I had a certain type of amalgamation of just the right types of autisms or ADHD hyperfixations, and now I'm just trapped. I look at the information that's widely available. I look at the ability to search and do research and do comparative politics and how readily available the evidence is. And people are, I don't give a shit that he's 1,000 fucking years old. I honest to God don't care that he's 1,000 years old. It does suck that he's 1,000 years old. But it is the way it is. That's the reality. Stand up and do what? Strike? Protest? What? I mean, the answer is that you, I can't tell you. I'm not allowed. I'm too well known. I'll be deplatformed. You know what you need to do. I've told you what you need to do. I can't tell you. I'm too well known. Like, what do you want me to say? You know what to do. It's completely obvious.
Break right here. Stick around for more Bernie Sanders, everybody.
Just make sure you follow all laws and regulations in your jurisdiction. Asking me, given your attitude toward Israel is so consequential in the U.S. at virtually every level of governance, is it a thing that a lot of people discover the reward for being explicitly pro-Israel with no qualifications get boosted by the groups through promotion after promotion, and thus Congress is made up of a majority of wholly unexceptional people? I mean, it's part of it. Yeah. I mean, if you are a Israeli supporter, you do get boosted by them. Now, the thing is, human beings do have one thing. They have a pretty good sociopath detector. It's not foolproof like the really elite sociopaths can get through. But overall, people tend to have a pretty decent sociopath detector. They have a pretty, skillful way of detecting it. So most of these people, they don't do that well. They don't do that well. Now, that being said, the really talented ones are the ones who can get past your filter. But you get this kind of heebie-jeebies around people who tend to support Israel. And I would say that supporting Israel is actually the most clear point right now that someone's a sociopath. If somebody's not speaking up about Israel, they're a coward. In which case, I have no use for them. Right? Like, if you're a coward, I don't want you to be leading my movement. Okay? So if they're silent about Gaza, they're a coward. If they're promoting Israel, they're a sociopath. This is 100% foolproof. We've never been luckier. I think that what makes people depressed is the fact that you can't cope anymore. The coping is dying. You're not allowed to cope. I mean, John Ossoff just voted to give Trump his fucking Qatar bribe jet, right? John Ossoff is not your friend. Gretchen Whitmer is not your friend. Beto O'Rourke is not your friend. Mayor Pete is not your friend. You need to stop promoting people that are scum. You need to have higher standards. You need to start showing people that being cowardly on Israel means that they will never get your support. And you need to be ferociously behind the people who have problems. You shouldn't be going to look to nitpick people. There is a simple line. Have they called it a genocide? AOC has called it a genocide. John Ossoff has not. Gretchen Whitmer has not. Andy Bashir has not. Stop falling for these fucking psyops. Be smarter. Abdul El Sayed is your friend. He supports Medicare for all. And what do you know? He also thinks it's a genocide. We have a divide between the people that care about humanity and those that are opportunist sociopaths, and it's never been clearer. It has never been easier to tell who's a good person and who isn't. Bernie Sanders has tried to blame the war crimes on Benjamin Netanyahu as opposed to what's going, and I don't know if he's used the word genocide, which is fucking pathetic. But thankfully, he's 85 fucking years old, and he ain't gonna be the guy. It's gonna be AOC. I have a lot of problems with AOC. I have a lot of criticisms with AOC. But the reality of what we're facing is stop trying to placate moderate Democrats. This is Stephen Colbert. This is Stephen Colbert allowing AIPAC to be attacked on his show. The vibes are shifting. I just need you to get in the fucking game. That's why the Democratic Party will never be truly united. We have way too many factions that dislike other liberals. Zero chance for unite around other person. Other liberals are the problem. Liberals are the problem. I want you to understand something, chat. Regular people are not liberals. They're regular people. Liberals are a tiny 1% of society. I want you to understand that ideological people are unusual. I'm unusual. I want you to know you're probably unusual. You watch my show. I've made you unusual. You're welcome. Regular people are not fucking ideological. They are not liberal. They like people. They identify with organizations and parties. They're not ideological. And trust me, I've had too many conversations with regular people on the doors to have, I know what it is. And when I meet a liberal, they're disgusting. Ezra Klein is not a human being. Matty Iglesias is not a human being. Noah Smith is not a human being. These people are not normal. They're not humans. Mayor P of billionaires on a nighttime talk show. I think one of the things about people like yourself, and I don't know if you're a longtime viewer of mine or you're relatively new, is seems like you started following in January. Both of these guys are popular and wealthy because a lot of regular people liked their stuff, right? And gave them money willingly, right? These guys made art that a lot of people liked. And Bernie Sanders, he wrote books that a lot of people wanted to read, and so they paid for it, right? They didn't set up factories in China and spew infinite pollution. They didn't set up a slave factory in Bangladesh that collapsed, killing hundreds of people. They didn't despoil the environment. They didn't enslave people. They didn't inherit it. Regular people, they didn't set up scam coins, right? Regular people liked what they had to say and gave them a little bit of money. And a lot of people did that. That's how they became wealthy. And notwithstanding their wealth, especially Bernie Sanders, he's still arguing, tax me more, give me less power. I shouldn't be controlling society because I'm a millionaire. I should only be controlling society if I have the consent of regular people. This is the reality that so many of you struggle with, is so-and-so's rich and I'm not. You are actually the conservative, pathetic conservative of envy. And you're like, if you were rich, you would be lording it over people. How come he's rich and he's saying how it's bad? One of the things that's very frustrating in this society is people rejecting class consciousness for what amounts to the politics of the seat of their pants. What do I feel in the moment, and how do I rationalize that? That's a lot of people. I have a feeling in the seat of the moment. I have a feeling in the flash of eyelash, and then I try to spend my time rationalizing why that is a justified and a good belief. How about you grow the fuck up? I likes it when Hassan describes it as reacting to shapes and colors. That's existed in the distinction between philosophical liberalism and political liberalism. I'm pretty skeptical of the whole reject the Enlightenment type of leftism. It seems to be a rejection of Marx too. I don't think that I'm rejecting the Enlightenment. I feel like I'm perfecting it. I'm perfecting it, which is I actually believe that every human being, I believe in humanism. I believe in equality of value. Right? I believe every human being is equal, not just the ones that happen to be in wealthy, powerful nation states that, profited from imperial plunder. I believe that freedom involves actually looking how individual people experience life and whether that is free, as opposed to hypothetically free or free for the elite to do whatever they fucking want. I am not free if I can't eat or I have no place to sleep, or I'm under attack, or I'm diseased. Chatter should read The Dialectic of Enlightenment by Adorno and Horkheimer. Yeah. Advancement of Enlightenment thinking. Just as Enlightenment thinking is an advancement from the Greek and other philosophy they're inspired by, advancement isn't rejection. I think one of the things that liberals really are objecting to is the idea that there should be any amount of violence to overturn the existing society. And let me just say that the existing society, it holds itself in place with tremendous amounts of violence. And so responding to that violence as a class is self-defense, which is the highest and most pure essence of nature. The first natural law is the right to self-preservation. Okay? And so our right to self-preservation necessitates self-defense against the society. So just from a philosophical standpoint, revolution is justified under natural law, first off, completely. And I think what happens is human beings become accustomed to things. They become adjusted to things. If there literally were, I think this is why I'm probably more of a fan of some of the things that other Marxists cringe at. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. I think that there is something to be taken from shows like Handmaid's Tale, for example. Handmaid's Tale has the public executions, right? And a lot of people think stuff like that is cringe, but it goes on all over the world all the time, including it used to happen here. It's just showing you that those public executions, they're not people being hanged in the town square, but they are people being gunned down by the cops on a body camera and then it posted online to be ogled by every conservative. It is the GoPro. It is the digital public execution of a ring camera or a dash cam or a body cam. It's the same fucking thing. A brain dead Georgia woman is being kept alive because she's... Have you seen the Ezra on Majority Report? My entire timeline is calling Sam a NIMBY and that Ezra destroyed him. No, that is every center-right abundance group chat. That's what it is. It's a center-right abundance group chat. And they're trying to pretend that Ezra Klein destroyed him, but notice there's no Ezra Klein examples. It's just people going like, "Oh, Sam said, what are you going to do to fund this thing?" And Ezra has no answers. But see, the thing is, they try to put Sam into boxes. Like that's what they don't actually debate any of the ideas, which is why I should debate it. See the Ezra debate.
And single-family homes.
Shenzhen doesn't have private land ownership. You understand that, right? The government owns every piece of land in China. No one can own land in China. You can at best get a 99-year lease. No one owns land in China. I accept Chinese land law. It's like when you actually look at the places that are delivering affordable housing, none of them are abundance neoliberalism. Internal situation is I want to explain it to you, chat. I'll explain to you exactly what my problem with AOC and Bernie is. When I was running a campaign in 2018 for a state Senate race, I had an incredibly promising opportunity for a progressive in a swing district to take out a member of the Republican leadership. We had great polling. We had a strong ground game. We had a burgeoning progressive movement. It would have been a huge W for the argument that progressivism can win, especially in places where the Democrats have given up. and AOC had just won the primary. And I tried my hardest to get AOC and Bernie Sanders to come out and campaign for this candidate. I actually have AOC's former communication director's fucking phone number in my phone. His name is Corbin Trent. Like, I have his mobile phone right now. I'm looking at the contacts right now. I don't know where he is now. I don't know what he's doing these days. And I talked to him and I said, it's only an hour drive. It's only an hour drive west. Maybe an hour 20. You could pop on over. You could campaign. She's not doing anything between now and November. It would be a really big boost. He'd probably win. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it. And this has always been the and we ended up losing by like 1%. All right? Like, and that is the end. That's the reality. Is they just will leave you out to dry. Like, they do it all the time. I don't know what else to say. Like, this has always been my problem with them, is that they don't actually, you know, want to take the role that history has given them, which is why the Democrats are in such dire straits. Their political instincts are shit. They're not Machiavellian. They are not it. Like, I don't know what else to say. They don't take any risks, but it's not a risk. People that you endorse are going to lose all the time. It is what it is. And like, I will always remember that election. It taught me so much. It taught me so much about the Democratic Party and the progressive movement and politics in America and why it's so broken.
Hold on 1 second. Hey, we're back with Senator.
Fear of retribution from AIPAC keeps many Democrats from speaking up about Gaza. Senator Sanders outright clips on the main Stephen Colbert Late Show with Stephen Colbert YouTube channel. And like, I don't know what to say. You know, I don't know what to say. Why won't they endorse Zoran? Well, probably because Brad Lander gives them a lot of money. That's probably if I had to guess, it's a personal relationship with Brad Lander or Stringer. Both of those guys are perennial candidates for New York City mayor. And it's some sort of like money connection or personal relationship that I don't know about, where they really, you know, that's who it is. That's what's going on. And they have the worst political people I've ever seen. I don't know what else to say. Lander has no shot. Stringer has no shot. But it is what it. But they're the Elizabeth Warrens of the race. I mean, let's be honest. They're about splitting progressive money, splitting progressive energy so that Cuomo can win. That's what it's about. Not be fucking confused. And, you know, ranked choice voting in New York is just, it's actually, I'm starting to become anti-ranked choice voting, if I'm being honest. And the reason why I'm becoming anti-ranked choice voting is because I don't think it actually, like, that's not actually how campaigns work. Campaigns are about bandwagoning and energy and definitive choice. And ranked choice voting creates this low energy gray melange where nobody can get mad at you for splitting the vote, when in reality what you're doing is you're splitting the campaign, right? The vote is not the only thing that happens. There's a whole campaign that happens for a year before it. And ranked choice voting splits the campaign to help centrists consolidate the vote. And we need a coordinated campaign if we're gonna win. And you can't have 8 different progressive candidates going, you can't get mad at me, ranked choice voting. It's like, yes I can. Your volunteers are campaigning for you and splitting the message and filling the airways with their bullshit. I'm becoming more and more of a Democratic centralist every single day. You have no idea. You have no idea. All right, chat. Let's watch some China news so we feel better.
On today's episode, China's space station is expanding.
Democracy
Rocket Lab is gearing up to compete with SpaceX, and NASA has a new problem with the Viper Moon rover. This week, China announced new plans to expand their Tiangong space station to double its current size. Tiangong is one of 2 space stations currently in orbit, and while the long-standing International Space Station is significantly larger, Tiangong has a distinct technological advantage due to it being 20 years younger. However, in this case, size does matter. With its current 3-module configuration, China's space station can only support a crew of 3 people for a long duration stay, and that greatly limits the amount of work that they can accomplish up there. Chinese media reported that growing experimental demands are already placing higher requirements on the space station's available space and energy supply. Phase 1 of Tiangong came together pretty fast, with the existing 3 modules being launched and assembled in 2021 and 2022. By expanding the station to 6 modules, it would extend the Chinese station's volume from about 20% to around 40% of the ISS. The first new module planned for Tiangong will be a multi-docking adapter with 6 ports that will attach to the Tianhe core module at the base of the existing T-shape. This is where they currently have a docking port for the cargo resupply ship. The new multi-adapter will mirror the way that the current 3 modules are connected, so eventually what we'll get is a shape that looks like 2 T's stacked on top of each other. Doubling the module count for the Tiangong would also give China twice as many docking ports for spacecraft. This will be helpful since China's space agency wants to develop 2 new crewed vehicles. One would only visit the moon, but the other would be specifically for low Earth orbit. And that plays into China's new ambition for opening up Tiangong to more international cooperation. Earlier this year, China's Human Spaceflight Agency announced it would be training astronauts from Pakistan to live on the station. They would be the first international astronauts to visit so far, but the Chinese have claimed to be in talks with other countries regarding flights of their astronauts to the station as well. It's unclear when any of the 3 new core modules will launch, but China has indicated that they intend to continue using their Long March 5B rocket for the job, which became infamous during the first phase of Tiangong construction for raining down flaming debris from space onto random parts of the Earth. That is a problem, and it stems from the Long March 5B being just a little bit underpowered for the job of putting a space station into orbit. So in order to get the performance they need out of the rocket, the Chinese run the first stage booster engines longer than usual. So instead of falling back down like a normal booster stage, the whole main body of the Long March 5 actually ends up in a very low orbit around the Earth, and then it slowly falls back down over the course of a few days until it re-enters the atmosphere and becomes a cloud of broken metal that inevitably lands somewhere. Typically the ocean, but sometimes it lands where people live, and that's not good. A Chinese official acknowledged this in a media interview, saying the main focus will be on enhancing reliability and safety. On one hand, we aim to further improve the safety of controlled re-entry of the first stage rocket body through optimized design. Not exactly the most reassuring statement, but they are working on it. While the Chinese haven't specified when the next core module of Tiangong will launch, we do know that the next schedule...
Let me just say that this is what rocket science looks like. There's going to be these kind of incidents. It's always been the case. There's no way to make perfect safety. That's why they call it rocket science, because it's hard to do. And SpaceX is spewing shit all over the planet. You know what I mean?
Flight of the Long March 5B is set to deliver a very interesting new space station accessory, China's first space telescope. It's going to be placed into an orbit very close to Tiangong so that it can very easily be serviced on spacewalks. The new Chinese telescope will be roughly equivalent to the Hubble in terms of size, with a 2-meter diameter main mirror. Although being 30 years ahead in technology, will allow China's space telescope to see the galaxy in much higher resolution with a 2.5 million megapixel camera that is designed to investigate dark matter and its effect on the evolution of the cosmos. That launch is currently scheduled for December 2026. Rocket Lab is an aerospace company out of New Zealand that has taken the world by storm in the time since their first test launch in 2017, quickly becoming known as a leader in the small satellite launch market.
Okay, I don't give a shit about these like weird privatized companies that don't do anything that hasn't been done with Mercury rockets. Show me something when they're doing something that isn't 1945 technology. Have you covered the New York mayoral race? I mean, I've covered Zoran, and I've said vote Zoran. What more do you want me to say? Cuomo bad, Zoran, vote Zoran. All right, let's talk about the next topic that I wanted to get to, which is Donald Trump wants to get rid of birthright citizenship. And they heard this argument in the Supreme Court. Now, in the Supreme Court, there's no video cameras. No video cameras. But you can get audio recordings. And so this is what it listened to. Rumor is AOC by the door setting day now. I expect
Multiple
that
federal
to
courts
happen.
have blocked the president from implementing a new order that would deny birthright citizenship to children whose parents are in the United States illegally. And while that issue is at the heart of this case, it wasn't really what the justices were even hearing arguments on today. Instead, that mainly focused on whether or not a judge can single-handedly block the president's executive order with what's known as a nationwide injunction. The conservative justices actually signaled that they were open to limiting that power, but several raised questions about what would happen if the president's order can stand as the courts are working out a case.
This is just a very practical question, how this is going to work. What do hospitals do with a newborn? What do states do with a newborn?
Let's just assume you're dead wrong. How do we get to that result? Does every single person that is affected by this EO have to bring their own suit?
So when a new president orders that, because there's so much gun violence going on in the country, and he comes in and he says, I have the right to take away the guns from everyone, then people, and he sends out the military to seize everyone's guns. We and the courts have to sit back and wait until every named plaintiff gets, or every plaintiff whose gun is taken comes into court.
My legal source tonight is CNN's senior legal analyst, Ellie Honig. And Ellie, I wonder, just given what we heard from the justices and their clear concern about chaos reigning throughout the United States, what were your biggest takeaways from today?
Well, Caitlin, both sides of this argument have a major problem. On the one hand, people who are in favor, the challengers here, the people who are in favor of nationwide injunctions, it's obviously an example of judicial overreach. District court judges, there are 700 of them or so in this country spread across 94 federal districts. They are supposed to decide the case before them as to the parties before them. And it really does offend Title III sensibilities for judges, individual judges, to be making decisions that apply to the entire country. On the other hand, if we got rid of these nationwide injunctions, as you just heard in those snippets you played, chaos would follow. How would we possibly take birthright citizenship? Why should a baby born in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia have one status, but a baby born in New Jersey have another status? Who's going to track it? So both sides have really deeply entrenched problems with their positions here.
Well, and it was interesting to hear from John Sauer, who's arguing on behalf of the government. He's the Solicitor General, basically number 3 at the DOJ. And he said to Justice Brett Kavanaugh that it's not clear how the president would enforce this executive order. I want people to just listen to what the Solicitor General had to say.
The states can continue to, the federal officials will have to figure that out.
How?
So you could imagine a number of ways that the federal officials could.
Such as?
Such as they could require a showing of, documentation showing legal presence in the country for a temporary visitor, for example.
For all the newborns? Is that how that's going to work?
Again, we don't know.
I mean, Kavanaugh sounded pretty skeptical there.
Yeah, that's the sound of a justice unconvinced. That's a bad moment for John Sauer. And let me tell you why that's especially important. If you're trying to sort of game out how might this decision come down. First of all, I think Trump's going to lose ultimately on birthright citizenship. I think his position departs too far from the way we've looked at that for 157 years. Every judge who's considered this lower court judge, regardless of ideology, has rejected that position. But the real ball game here is those nationwide injunctions. It's clear the 3 liberal justices are going to be against Trump on them. It's clear Alito and Thomas are going to be for him. So the ball game is, can you, if you're on the liberal side, get 2 out of Gorsuch, Roberts, Barrett, and Kavanaugh? And I think Kavanaugh sees a real problem with the practicalities here. And I think Amy Coney Barrett also voiced some real questions that I think would be of concern to the Trump administration.
The court now has 2 questions to weigh if it chooses. Can lower courts impose nationwide injunctions? And fundamentally, does the 14th Amendment mean something other than what it appears to say? With me here to argue the case, best-selling Supreme Court biographer and former federal prosecutor Jeffrey Toobin, also CNN political analyst and New York Times White House correspondent Maggie Haberman. Jeff, just on the legal front, regarding those 2 aspects of how this may be decided, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think ultimately birthright citizenship is going to be upheld. I mean, there doesn't seem to be much sentiment on the court to adopt the Trump position on birthright citizenship. However, the issue of nationwide injunctions, which is a big issue, it was big under President Biden, it's big now. the court seems quite torn on that issue because, and it's a very hard question because it's obviously a problem when liberal lawyers can run to San Francisco and get one nationwide injunction and conservative lawyers can run to Amarillo, Texas and get a different.
And we've seen both that done under different administrations.
And that is not how the legal
Jeffrey
system
jerk his tube in his back. You can jerk your dick on a Zoom, but as long as you're a centrist, you can come back. You can jerk your dick in front of your entire fucking coworkers live on Zoom, but as long as you're a centrist, you get your job back.
Supposed to work. However, when you have something like birthright citizenship, it is a good idea to have a national rule. So a nationwide injunction is a good idea. So how do you differentiate between cases? I mean, you don't want to have a situation where you have birthright citizenship in New York, but not in Texas. It should be one rule for the country. And so the issue is, how do you differentiate between issues where it's appropriate to have a nationwide injunction and have it, and some where it's not? And I don't think the court has really sorted that out at all. They seem pretty much at sea on
Maggie, do you have any sense how the administration feels about how things went?
Hey, look, they are happy that this fight is at the Supreme Court. This fight over nationwide injunctions is one they have wanted for some time. Separately, the one over birthright citizenship is one they have wanted for a while. Some folks in the administration believe they will ultimately be successful on a birthright citizenship case, even if it's not this one. On the nationwide injunctions, this relates to a lot of their efforts in this administration going forward. If the court ends up doing something in their favor or takes time making this decision, they believe that all at least adheres to them in some way. This administration has yoked, the public relations component and the press component and what people read with the legal component, and they think that if people are seeing that the justices themselves are grappling with this, it gives more weight to what they're arguing. Even if they don't actually win on the point, there are enough people who will question what they are seeing when judges issue nationwide injunctions if they continue.
And how quickly would a ruling come through, Jeff?
Well, they seem very concerned about acting quickly, more than in the usual case, because they recognize.
Why is he talking about states when citizenship is a federal issue? Because the Democrats have allowed Republicans to make. This is getting down into the weeds, but you asked, and the answer requires you to go down into the weeds. So basically, Democrats have allowed conservatives to largely control the appointment of judges in red states, and they accomplish this by a Senate tradition called the blue slip, which is, in order for an appellate or district court judge to be appointed within a senator's state, they have to basically approve them. So when Democrats controlled the Senate and Democrats controlled the White House and there were judicial vacancies in Texas, Republican senators would send in blue slips or refuse to send in blue slips that would give their approval for that vote to be brought to the full Senate. And so the Republicans practice obstruction, and they would just refuse to give blue slips to any appointee in red states. And the Democrats let them do it. When Donald Trump was president and the Republicans controlled the Senate, they revoked the blue slip for Democrats in their states. So the Republicans did not respect the blue slip tradition, and they appointed as many judges as they could in any vacancy they could, including in blue districts and blue states. And so what has happened is red states and red circuit courts have become much more conservative than other districts around the country. And the Democrats have continually upheld the blue slip tradition when they're in power, and then when they're out of power, Republicans have not. So it's sort of like a one-sided filibuster. Basically, Republicans can filibuster all of Democratic appointees in red states and red districts, but Democrats will not do the same in return. And so we've seen the judiciary veering further and further to the right. And so why is this relevant to this case right now? Because Republicans will do something called venue shopping, where they will go to Republican states and sue in Republican states so they could get Republican judges and Republican district courts. And those Republican district court judges will issue nationwide injunctions enforcing their interpretation of the law on the entire country. The reason why, and furthermore, Texas has made it very easy to judge shop by making specific district judges. In most states, when you sue a district court, there is a random drawing, so you don't know which judge you're going to get. But in Texas, they have set up a system where you can literally pick the judge you want. So it's not random at all. And so we're now looking at a situation where the Democrats have allowed themselves once again, wow, I can't believe it. The Democrats have allowed themselves once again to be blocked by this procedural one-sidedness where Republicans in power, they overturn the parliamentarian. In fact, they're doing it right now. I don't know if you guys saw this because it's a non-story because no one cares. But Republicans are overturning the parliamentarian. They're like literally about to do it. Yeah, here it is. Republicans are about to overrule the parliamentarian. Dems say it's a warning sign for reconciliation. If they're going to overthrow the parliamentarian on this, they'll do it on anything else, Senator Adam Schiff said. So this is Senate Republicans want to overturn an electric vehicle law in California via the Congressional Review Act. The only problem, the Senate parliamentarian says Republicans can't do it using the CRA. Republican leaders say senators should just ignore her. So remember when the Democrats had a trifecta, they controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House, and they're like, we can't do that. The parliamentarian won't let us. Well, now that the shoe's on the other foot and the parliamentarian is blocking Republicans, the Republicans are like, we're ignoring you. So the entire time I told you the parliamentarian has no power. The parliamentarian is just an advisor. They're wrong. They can ignore her if they want. And the Republicans, here they are proving me right. And here's the thing. They've done this before. Okay. The Republicans have done this before. Again, I'm bringing all this off the top of my head, but it's like Republicans. Let me just search it. Overturn parliamentarian for tax cuts. It's the Bush tax cuts. Let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can find this. Okay, it's all there. It's all, oh my Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, Google is so bad now that it only puts in things that are like news stories from now. Here we go. There we go. We found it. Jesus Christ. Key Senate official loses job in dispute with GOP May 7th, 2001. So for the Bush tax cuts, the Republicans fired the parliamentarian when he said he couldn't use reconciliation for it. And then they did it anyway. And there was a 50-50 Senate, by the way. It was a 50-50 Senate, just like the Democrats had when they had the trifecta this last time. So what I'm trying to tell you is centrist Democrats use these procedural hurdles to intentionally trip, and then they turn to their supporters, the blue no matter who, blue MAGA people, and say, oh, we can't do that, the rules, the procedures, we can't do it. And then Republicans come into power, and whether it's the parliamentarian, whether it's the filibuster, whether it's blue slips, when it's used to block Republicans, they just overturn it instantly and quietly, and nobody fucking cares, because nobody cares about parliamentary procedure in this country. I hope I answered all those questions. Okay. The Democratic Party is not a real party. I know you guys I know it feels conspiratorial to say this, but the Democratic Party is controlled opposition. It does not try to accomplish anything. It is there to absorb money and energy. That's what it's there for. And until the American people discard the Democratic Party and form, I say that we should revive the Bull Moose Party. We should have a progressive party. There should be a dirty break, and we should throw away the Democratic Party, the slave-holding, racist, piece of shit, Jim Crow party, in the trash bin of history. And we should start a new party just like they did in Mexico, and we give up on this Democratic Party of corruption. And we build a new progressive party from the ground up where we don't allow these type of people to even run for office. Or we could do PSL, whatever the fuck. My point is, we need a new party. How long has the Democratic Party been like this? I would say that the Democratic Party really lost its way when FDR died. I think the most overrated president in American history is Harry Truman. Most of what is making the world terrible was done under Truman. And like a lot of it, we've just we've been rotting since then. Now, obviously, there were good things that happened under, say, LBJ. There were good things that happened in our history that continued to happen. Everything wasn't all bad once Truman got into office, but I would say that was the turning point in American history, where we have become the kind of continuation of fascism but stealth. And now it's reemerging from us like the xenomorph. You know, we allowed our eggs to be laid deep within our bodies after World War II to fight communism and socialism. And now the fascist xenomorph is emerging through our heart cavity.
That the uncertainty generated
anyway,
by
I hope that wasn't too boring
when
and
nationwide
substantive.
injunctions may be illegal.
I mean, I could be talking about drama. I know that's what people really want me to talk about, but
is something that's
I try to talk about politics once in a while
so,
here.
You know, we're already late in the term. I mean, the term usually ends beginning of July. Here we are, the middle of May. But I would suspect there's going to be a decision in this case even before the end of the term, because they really want to get some sort of order around this, especially when it's not just birthright citizenship, but a lot of the Trump initiatives are being challenged in court, and there really should be one rule for the whole country.
And is the administration ready to act on this?
Well, if they win in this case, yes, they're going to move forward quite quickly, and you are going to see a rollout of a number of executive actions. Look, they're very proud of how many executive actions they have taken. They're very proud of basically trying to expand and maximize executive power in ways, obviously, that critics say is going beyond the scope of their authority. But they are maneuvering around Congress, and they have been trying to both do two things. One is to try to get things before the Supreme Court so they can then have whatever they are trying to do either signed off of or not signed off of, and then they'll try again in certain cases. But they are also attempting to attack the legitimacy of some of what courts nationwide are doing in general. You are seeing Stephen Miller doing it. You have seen Elon Musk doing it. Trump is doing it, albeit to a slightly lesser degree. If they succeed here, they will move very quickly. But what aspects of their agenda, we'll see.
Well, but if they succeed in any way in limiting nationwide injunctions, that's good for the Trump administration.
Yes,
and that is, I mean, because ultimately, you know,
that is the only thing that is stopping a number of these executive orders.
I mean, the main story of the first months of the Trump administration has been this attempt to expand executive authority and the courts reeling it back in certain circumstances. To the extent you can limit the courts, that helps the Trump administration. So any sort of limitation on that, which seems possible,
how
is likely.
They were pulling every lever in every realm. It's remarkable.
Look, we heard Steve Bannon talk about flooding the zone in 2017 when they first came in. This is an entirely different order of magnitude. They are not just with policy, but basically with every system that they can, trying to either attack it or take ownership of it or neutralize it, and the courts are the last vestige.
Yeah. Maggie Haberman, Jeff Toobin, thanks very much.
All right, chat. We finally have a super exciting. They finally did it, chat. Oxford finally drops the Hassan videos. Finally. Let's watch it. Let's ruin your future Hasanabi stream viewing later in the day by stealing the content and playing it here first. Let's go. Let's go. Hassan Piker on what's next for Republicans after Trump and the widening gender gap in politics. I want to say something about this, which is part of the reason why there is such a gap in politics is because of the Matt Christman conception of politics as the don't be a pussy party versus the don't be an asshole party. And men don't mind being assholes. Men don't mind being called asshole. They really don't. What they hear asshole, they hear somebody who stands up for themselves, somebody who is assertive, somebody who doesn't mind, you know, leading and breaking eggs. They don't mind being, in fact, a lot of men think being an asshole is kind of cool. Whereas most men, overwhelming majority of men, find being called a pussy to be really problematic. Even left-wing men. Even men, you know, if you're a man, what does being called a pussy mean? Yes, it's misogynistic, but what does it fundamentally mean? It means you're cowardly. It means you're a pushover. It means what you want to have happen doesn't happen. What you think is right gets overruled. You are not able to effectuate your will into the world because you're scared and you're weak. And fundamentally, that attacks masculinity. So, of course, they're flocking to the don't be a pussy party over the don't be an asshole party. What I want on the left is more assholes. I want more people on the left who have sharp elbows. You know what the left does well is when people are angry, when people are getting their way, when strikes are winning. That's what's attractive. And this kind of like milieu of politics. And I got to tell you, chat, like, you know, if I was a normie, if I didn't know about the left, if I wasn't a socialist, if I didn't understand class consciousness and fighting the, you know, the traditions of the working class and its fight against the bourgeoisie, and if I didn't know about the heroes of socialist revolution and working class revolution and the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire and the million other left-wing heroes, and you know, if I didn't know about John Brown, if I didn't know about all of these people, all of them being assholes, then I certainly would want to be a Democrat. Are you fucking kidding me? Have you seen these fucking people? If I was a normie, I would never, ever in a million years support Pete Buttigieg. I will never support Pete Buttigieg. Like, there is absolutely 0% that I could ever support Gavin Newsom or Pete Buttigieg. So let's keep going. Let's get this going.
So just raise your hand and I'll pick on you. The member at the front, right there.
First of all, congratulations on Thanksgiving this year. It was much better than last year.
He said, congratulations on Thanksgiving this year. Much better than last year.
Now, Hassan, probably very evident that I agree with you 99.9%. So my question is going to be within the left, right?
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be an emerging debate of which your uncle is on the other side of the aisle. And
Wait a minute. Is this where's the other part? Is this wrong? Wait. Okay, so we just did the okay, let's do the interview first before we do Q&A.
I think that we're priming young men who are already in the throes of radicalization due to the hopelessness that they feel, who are already
This is edited down. Didn't he have a speech?
Vulnerable into...
I got banned on Our Politics for calling him Mayo Pete. You racist. How dare you attack his white skin? You racist. You disgusting racist. How dare you? This man was born in the lap of luxury as the privileged son of 2 college professors in one of the whitest towns in America, and he spent most of his time doing racist shit like firing the black police chief and fire chief so that he could put in racially oppressive white racists in charge of those departments and bulldozing black homes. How dare you call him Mayo Pete?
Being really open-minded, dare I say too open-minded to reactionary opinions.
I poured water for you.
Okay, that was a thunderous applause in comparison to Cambridge, I'll tell you what.
First of all, thank you so much for those remarks. On that note, you've demonstrated a remarkable ability to mobilize your online community. For example, you raised over $1 million, fundraised over $1 million for Palestine, over 200,000 for Ukraine. You yourself donated to the UCLA encampment. And young people have been at the forefront of pro-Palestinian activism and other causes as well. And you've done that uniquely through Twitch and streaming, especially breaking down...
Why are you sending me the University of Chicago shit, but not the Oxford? Like, why are you sending me the totally different event?
Political topics, election updates, and international affairs. So on a broader note, how do you think bridging, the world of Twitch and streaming with politics has had an impact on young people, especially on the discourse between left and right-wing discourse?
Oof. So I think that my little community online is almost like an island in a sea of sharks, for the most part. I think that Twitch has this profound ability to get people to be invested in certain causes, and I'd feel insufficient if I spoke on all of the horrifying things that happen all around the world and not take some sort of action against it, because sometimes simply communicating these issues is not enough. So I've been able to effectively use my audience in that regard, and I worked with a bunch of other content creators as well in another endeavor called Creators for Palestine, where we also raised another, I think it was like $2 million for numerous Palestinian charities on the ground. And it's been, I mean, I've been tremendously privileged, and I try to use that privilege for good every single day.
What exactly does reactionary mean? Seems like Hassan means it as anyone to the right, but I thought it meant somebody who appears to be for change, but when change might actually happen, they reveal their conservative tendencies. No. A reactionary is somebody who wants to return to a previous status quo ante. That means they want to roll back progress. A conservative wants to maintain the world that we have today. They want to maintain the status quo. A reactionary wants to roll back progress and go to a previous era. So, like, for example, getting rid of gay marriage or an abortion right. That's a reactionary opinion. Whereas conservatism is like, we shouldn't increase the social safety net because that's well-intentioned, but it'll damage the economy. That's a conservative. A reactionary is also somebody who wants to, who wants to unwind the revolution. Like if a revolution happened, for example, in the American Revolution, reactionaries were loyalists who were trying to keep America or want to return America back to the rule of the British monarchy.
But would I say that the entire online space, especially the entire political arena online, is similar? No, definitely not. I think it's like heavily dominated by a lot of right-wing commentary, and I just try to do my best to fight back against disinformation and try to convince people to see the world in a different way.
So on that note, you referenced that under President Joe Biden, there's actually been an increase of male-centered, and I quote, Gamergate culture war narratives at the forefront of political commentary. So can you expand on what that phenomenon means and its implications on political...
So American liberals are conservative and Republicans are reactionary? Yes.
Of course.
Yeah, so I talked about this with Pod Save America leading up to the election as well, where I noticed that, I think one day I saw a tweet that this guy named Sean Ryan, who's like a former CIA guy or something, I don't know, he's like one of those like defense guys. He's virtually interviewed every single person that Donald Trump has picked for his cabinet. It's just, to give you a better understanding of what kind of content he makes. He had actually overthrown Joe Rogan as the #1 podcast. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I saw the list of podcasts and I was like, oh my God, every single podcast on here is insanely right-wing. All the top podcasts were dominated by like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan. Like Joe Rogan was woke in comparison to the rest of this list. And it blew my mind. I was like, holy shit. Like I just, I can't believe it. And then I looked a little bit deeper and I shouldn't have, but that was Spotify. And, Apple News was Apple Podcast was the exact same. And I was a little bit worried. So I brought it up, especially because in the space that I'm in, there is a lot of center-right, centrist, fence-sitting content creators that find themselves in the throes of right-wing radicalization, sometimes organically, other times they do it because they know that there's a market for it. But there are a lot of commentary channels out there that find themselves doing center-right commentary all the way to far-right commentary. And it exists in virtually every single interest that young men have. You like cars, you go to a YouTube car channel, and all of a sudden this guy's like talking about the G-Wagon's history, and then he's like a little bit too enthusiastic. You're like, what's going on? Why are you talking about it like that? Or video games obviously is the one that everybody knows, where virtually every single commentator in that space is constantly talking about, like, there was a black woman on a video game, that's woke, that's DEI, we need to end that. And I think that we're priming young men who are already in the throes of radicalization due to the hopelessness that they feel, who are already very vulnerable, into being really open-minded, dare I say too open-minded to reactionary opinions.
So just shifting to the election, you and other left-leaning commentators have been vocal in condemning decisions by the Democratic Party in the run-up to the election. You were actually kicked out of the DNC, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But even after that, you know, in the recent pardoning of Hunter Biden, you even called like liberals stupid in the recent video that you put out about that. So do you think repeated criticisms by prominent left-wing figures cost the party this election, and do you think they deserved it?
I don't think that my criticism.
Do you think Oxford strategically released this video after Hassan made a round in the mainstream media for his detention, or do you think it's a coincidence? I think there's no such thing as coincidences. I think people make these decisions to try to maximize their impact, and people try to pursue things that are going to, you know, anytime. Let me just talk to you about politics and pragmatism in general. If you're ever just doing things, even though you can't rationally explain why you're doing it, and then you reach for like, well, it's just the right thing to do, or it's just like, you know, X, Y, and Z, I just have to do this, right? If there's no attempt to connect why it will work with what you're doing, then you are acting like an ideologue. You're acting like a zealot. All right. You need to be connecting what you're doing with something that makes sense. It has to be rationally, you know, there has to be some element of, you know, argument for why it's going to be effective. This is a life lesson. Don't act dogmatically.
Criticisms of the party were costly to the election. I often think if I had that capacity, because this is something that people say all the time, where you're like, you're too critical of the Democrats. I'm like, well, first of all, if they listened to me, I think that they probably would have performed better. You know, that's one thing that I've seen at least. But also, if I had this kind of motion, Bernie Sanders would be president. This would be the end of his second term, you know? I don't. But also, if I had this kind of motion and this kind of influence, then the Democratic Party would be stupid not to come and like beg for an audience with someone like myself. I was this like supposed kingmaker. So no, I don't think independent media, especially on the progressive side, that was critical of the campaign, did cost the election.
Here's what I would say. I would say that we did. I would say that I personally, when I went on Hassan's stream and I said, don't vote for Kamala Harris, she's scum, I am the one who made her lose the election. It was me. Okay. I stopped her. I defeated her. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to keep defeating Democrats until they give in, until they come and they kiss my feet. Now, I'll be nice. I won't make them do it on camera, but they're going to kiss my feet. If you know, that's the way it's going to go. It was me. I did it. I blocked them. I was in Hassan's chat. I was in Hassan's community, and I was telling everybody, don't vote for the genocide Holocaust Harris. It was fucking me. I fucking did it. And I'm going to keep doing it. Now, here's the thing. I'm pragmatic. If they come in here and say, I support Medicare for all, and I'm going to fight tooth and nail against Israel, then I'll say vote for them. I'll change my mind, right? Like, I'm gettable, but I'm very powerful. Okay? I am gettable. I am persuadable. I'm not intransigent, you know? I will compromise. But if you don't kiss my ass, I'm coming for you, Democrats, and I'm going to keep making you lose. And you've told us how pragmatic you are. You told us how much you're willing to compromise. So come to me. I'm in charge. I did it.
I think you can't really outflank the campaign because at the end of the day, they have $1.5 billion in their war coffers, and they're using that to be like, this is what we represent. So even if I were to, for example, let's say, try to get people to vote for Kamala Harris by lying and telling them she actually is super woke on Israel. She said to me secretly she's going to dismantle the Zionist entity piece by piece. Please go out and vote for her. She hates genocide. And then she goes on television and she's like, you know, Israel is super cool and I love Israel and we have to give more weapons to Israel. Israel has a right to defend itself. People are going to hear that and they're not going to listen to me. So there's no way that you can outflank the campaign in that regard. So I think it all still goes back to what they choose to communicate, how they communicate it, and ultimately it goes back to policies. Are they addressing the material realities, the fears and anxieties that people experience? And I don't think the Democrats do a good job with that at all, and I've been very critical of that because I don't want Donald Trump to win. I understand that American foreign policy to a certain degree is uniparty, and outside of that uniparty approach, it only ratchets further and further to the right, and that only happens when you have a right-wing president. So I don't want that to happen, even on Gaza policy, which is, seemingly uniparty regardless. And in order, when I make these criticisms of the Democratic Party, it's not to harm them. It's because I want them to actually be a competent anti-fascist counterbalance to the Republican Party. I want them to fight.
So recently, as I just referenced, you did have a video on President Joe Biden's pardoning of Hunter Biden. And I actually thought you had a very interesting take on this in your video about pardons and crime bills. So how do you feel about the fact that the son of the man who led one of the biggest crime bills, which imprisoned the lives of many minorities and Black Americans, etc., just pardoned his son for those very same crimes?
Yeah, it's pure hypocrisy. It's ridiculous. And I don't mean hypocrisy in the sense that he kept lying over and over again that he wasn't going to pardon Hunter Biden. I understand when he says it was an instance of lawfare, which is ironic because that's what Trump talks about all the time as well, and said Biden's DOJ was prosecuting Trump unfairly. I mean hypocrisy in its purest form. Joe Biden does not care about poor people, Black people, brown people when they their lives are irreparably ruined because of mistakes that they've made. With the crime control bill that he was the architect of. But of course, when it's his own son, he's like, oh my God, we have to free him. One thing that I also got frustrated with was, at least do clemency for thousands of other people. What the fuck are you doing? You're like, no, I'm just gonna fix this situation for my son. And worse, he also came out recently, and I can't believe he said this, they're actually entertaining a blanket pardon for Liz Cheney and Adam Schiff. Now, I get why he's trying to do that, because he thinks that these important figures are probably going to be unfairly persecuted by the Trump administration. But really, Liz Cheney? Let her go to prison, please. What are we doing? Anyway, that's my take.
All right, this is really, really, really funny. Holy shit. Hasanabi Productions just posted an edit that I gotta show you guys real quick.
I made this video for two reasons. First, to stop Hassan infiltrating mainstream media.
Shut up, bitch!
Popular left-wing Twitch streamer and YouTuber Hassan Piker.
This is Hassan Piker.
Mr. Hassan Piker.
Hassan Piker, one of the top streamers on Twitch.
Hassan Piker, what's up?
Hassan Piker.
Hassan Piker.
Hassan.
She lie to your face, I really don't get it. She say what you want her to say. At the end of the day, I'm still getting money regardless, I'm still getting paid. She want Gucci, Louis, and the Fendi. Fuck around and leave your pockets empty. Swear I ain't a
This is me white dancing.
Missy, do you really miss me?
My lawyer can't do fucking shit! I made this video for...
Incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. 10 out of 10 white guy dance. I need to just post that on TikTok. I need to post an edit that's just that. Okay, let's get the other Hassan video. The Q&A. Let's go.
I say this jokingly, but Donald Trump is white man's Obama.
People being like, that's it. It's just one of the videos. Come down.
Pick on you. The member at the front, right there.
Hassan, first of all, congratulations on Thanksgiving this year. It was much better than last year.
He said, congratulations on Thanksgiving this year. Much better than last year.
Now, Hassan, probably very evident that I agree with you 99.9%. So my question is going to be within the left, right?
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be an emerging debate, of which your uncle is on the other side of the aisle, and I'm on your side, by the way, that there is a fundamental challenge that comes with the left coalition. Bhaskar Sankar wrote an article in Vox about left being in purgatory. It appears to me so, and it's an honest criticism to you and all the other leftist streamers, Kyle Kulinski and everybody else. You guys talk about working class politics, but you guys don't look, walk, be with the working class. That's an important hurdle, I feel, in not only making sure that you're advocating for those people, but also giving them the trust that you are their man and you will be fighting for them. One of the reasons that Joe Biden won the Midwest was because he could present that Scranton Joe figure.
Ugh. I hate how people just create these fucking liberal fucking narratives that are not materialist in any way, and they present themselves as ultra left. And which really just shows you, like, the ultra left is just liberalism. It's just liberalism wrapping itself in gauze until they somehow convince themselves that they're not liberal. It's like, bro, you didn't analyze shit. He could present himself as a Scranton Joe figure. That's why he presented himself as the Scranton Joe figure. How about it was not the case? How about it was Donald Trump was coughing up a lung with COVID-19 and looked like a total idiot while we were all scared? It's hard to put yourself in the brains of where we were in the end of 2020, in November of 2020, but I can tell you, we were scared of COVID-19 and Donald Trump caught it and he looked like a complete dope and people were just tired of him being a complete idiot and an embarrassment. It wasn't because he was Scranton Joe. He was just considered to be somebody who will be competent and normal. And that's what people wanted. They wanted competent and normal. And then it turns out that Joe Biden was neither. But let's stop.
How do you perceive that challenge and how to sort of also deal with this?
Also, he wasn't blue collar and he didn't come from fucking the working class. Joe Biden was a politician since he was 29 years old. He was corrupt as fuck. Like, what are you talking about? He wasn't a legitimate member of the working class. Like, it was all affect.
Leftist that we're going to put the trans people and the gay people under the bus. Balancing act. How are you going to do that?
Great question. So I think that the way that the Democratic Party has done this is awful for the most part. I think we all agree on that. Or at least, I mean, it was a demonstrable failure. The way they've presented this in the past is, you know, we're going to defend trans people, so you might as well vote for us and make a compelling harm reduction argument, which has been a demonstrable failure time and time again. That, like, we are better than the Republicans and we'll protect you, but we're not going to make any. We're not even going to say we're going to protect you, and apparently. Now they're not even interested in protecting trans people at all. They want to be the transphobic party on top of everything else. I think this is a failure. I think the real way to combat this is not to succumb to wedge issues that the Republicans are routinely using as a distraction. Because the reality of the matter is they don't want to have the tough conversations. They don't want to have an argument against someone who says, we need to build social housing. We need to build public housing. We need to claw back the housing market from these speculators, the people that treat it like as a simple asset and not shelter that you need for survival. When the Democratic Party makes a convincing argument on that front, now the Republicans have to present themselves against that in an effort to defend their corporate oligarchs, their corporate benefactors. And because of the unfortunate reality that the Democratic Party is also captive to the same corporate interests, they refuse to make that argument. And in that process, when they don't have anything, we don't have any red meat for the Republicans to grab onto and attack and try to position themselves as being against, especially popular policies such as Medicare for all, then the Republicans dominate the field. And culture war issues and wedge issues are their bread and butter. So I think it's a twofold problem. Obviously, you should be uncompromising in defending all marginalized communities. But having said that, the best possible way to do that is by pushing for universal programs that affect the lives of every single American unconditionally. This way, you broaden your coalition, and also simultaneously put forth policies that will put the Republican Party at odds with its base. And you need to be able to do that in an earnest way as well. So there's a long way to go for the Democrats, who unfortunately have destroyed any sort of goodwill that they could have had. They come across as technocratic elitists that are ideologically minded. And
okay, I don't even think that's true. I legitimately don't even agree with that. I don't think that Democrats come across as technocratic elitists. At least they don't, to me. The Democrats come across as blinkered, corrupt, and uncaring. And snakes. They have forked tongues. They say shit, but they really only care about themselves and profiting themselves and their families. That's the way they come across. They don't come across as like nerds that are like annoying. That's not right at all.
Invested in third-way neoliberalism unconditionally, and it's going to, you're going to need great communicators who are real fighters, who are really invested in improving the material conditions of all American workers.
Next hand. The person in the very back with the plaid shirt. Yes, you.
So in your speech, you raise sensible and legitimate concerns about Israel and its practices and how it has conducted the war, etc. I think you're somewhat vaguer on the solution. You implied, quote unquote, the dismantlement of the Zionist project. Could you get in a bit more of the specifics of what that would look like? Be governing the land? What happens to the millions of Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs?
Of course, great question. So I am a firm and committed believer in a singular, solitary, secular state. This is somewhat controversial for a lot of people because I think for so many years at this point, for the past couple of decades, it's always been the two-state project, and that is like the most likely, most realistic outcome. But I agree with Avi Shlaim, Israeli Iraqi historian Avi Shlaim, who also went on his own intellectual journey of moving away from the two-state solution to a singular state because of what the two-state solution represents. I call it the so-called peace process. Peace process for a reason, because that was very cynically used by the Israeli government to really explode the settler expansion in the West Bank to create Bantustans, to create these like tiny micro-Palestinian villages that they cut across deliberately. And that's what the two-state project looks like. And I think at this point, it's become a single state already, that Israel is the sovereign state of this entire territory, and it is an apartheid state. So I hope that with enough pressure, and it is already happening, things are changing in a way that I never thought I would see in my lifetime, where people will continue to engage with boycott, divestments, and sanctions.
Depends how wide open your eyes are. We see it. Many don't are easily duped or just too busy surviving, which is by design, of course. I think one of the things that really is like something that I'm dealing with right now is trying to keep myself on the non-militant path, because I don't really see any groups that are coherent and not schizoid that you could join. I think oftentimes when people look at situations like for example, how the Palestinians are oppressed, and people, I think Sam Cedar said the other day that if he was a Palestinian, he would have joined the PFLP or he would have joined Hamas, right? And I feel like I think that is a sign of when peaceful democratic means are no longer bearing any fruit or just bitterness. You come to a fork in the road, and the fork in the road is apathy or militancy. And I think that in America, the liberal road has come to its fork, and those are the choices. Like you can't keep walking forward, and if you try to keep walking forward, you're really veering into apathy. And so every single time I'm trying to peek around the sign. I'm like, is there a desire path? Is there a way to stay on this non-militant, legal path? I am in a position of immense privilege that I could advocate for what I believe in, and I could talk about politics as a profession from a legal perspective. And I feel like legal Marxists are incredibly important for the movement. The problem is, none of you are organizing any of the illegal Marxism that we need. It doesn't exist. So it's like, I want to be it's like, am I supposed to do it all? Am I supposed to do everything? Like, what the fuck? Where are the illegal Marxists? Why aren't people doing the thing they're supposed to do? Everybody here is a consumer of politics. And when I say legal versus illegal, I'm talking about what Lenin describes, right? In Russia. Lenin often talks about this distinction in his writing.
And
how does one do that without sounding like a fed? Well, the
for
first thing is you can't post online. I want you to understand that every time you post in social media, it is examined by the FBI. Okay? It's not that the FBI is specifically looking at you and there's some sort of warrant to surveil you. No. It's just that all of it is automatically cataloged and searched for keywords and phrases. So like social media is a self-snitching hotline. So if you try to organize through social media or you say what you need to say on social media, then you're automatically intercepted and the FBI is made aware. That's why people get visits from the FBI, because they've been intercepted by their social media. I have not had an FBI visit, and I won't, because I don't do the things that trigger those things, because I understand them. And so, like, your goal should not be emotional release and catharsis. Your goal should be achieving ends. And I want you to achieve the ends.
Israel to maintain an apartheid state, and it will inevitably dissolve in the same way that the South African process happened.
The member at the very front in the black coat.
Hello, thank you so much for being here. It's great to hear you speak. I'm actually from UCLA, and I think you donated some pizzas to our encampment in the spring, so we really appreciate that. My question is on a topic Sarah brought up earlier, which is the reality of this really widening gender political gap among young people, especially like in online spaces. The radicalizing of young boys is a really intense. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on how we can culturally course correct and adjust that issue in the future.
Yeah, it is a real problem. It is becoming worse and worse, I think. And it is, I mean, it's the same as enmity towards any other marginalized group, that like gender wars has become like the very common way that people find themselves in the throes of reactionary ideals. And I don't necessarily think it's just like the manosphere or the content that is making people this way. I think ultimately I'm a firm believer that if you solve a lot of the material problems, that you will be able to make it much easier to tackle some of this nascent reactionary sentiment. A lot of young men are vulnerable. They're getting worse and worse educational outcomes, and as a consequence of that, they're getting worse job outcomes. They're no longer seeing upward social mobility as a reality, and they have the exact same social and economic pressures that everybody else faces as well, in terms of no job prospects, never really owning a home, never really retiring. Like, that's not even a reality for many people at this point. And I think that creates a lot of anger, and especially if you're a young boy and you've grown up in a patriarchal society, you also have a built-in sense of entitlement that comes along with it. You see this a lot more in young white men in general, and a combination of all of those factors, I think, play a very significant role in the way that young men view the world and the anger that they feel. So I know I feel like I'm repeating myself quite a bit on this issue, but it comes from trying to fix some of these underlying societal problems that will help every single person. And then outside of that, you probably have to take a look at education, primary schooling and whatnot, and the curriculums and the way that we educate people, and maybe make some fixes if you want to tackle this issue. But I don't see any politician coming out and directly addressing that at all, and so I feel like the problem's only going to worsen. Damn, everybody has a question now.
Okay, the member that's putting their head up like that, yeah, you.
Hi, thank you very much. I thought it was interesting what you brought about with the growth of right-wing movements in the West. I think the thing which distinguishes what's going on in the States from Europe is it's really centered around one person. You know, the Republican Party is in many ways a Trump party, you know, which begs the question, what happens to the Republican Party after Trump? The Republican Party is a strange coalition of very many different people only will he be brought together by the love of this one person. So does the party split when he goes? Does it, because a lot of these people really do not like each other. So I would be very interested to hear your view.
Who cares? I legitimately don't care. I legitimately don't care about the post-Trump political movement. Okay, like I personally don't give a shit. You know, I think the idea that Donald Trump runs for president again is also very much up in the air. I think a lot of people are like, well, he can't. It's in the Constitution. Constitution says that he can't run again. Pretty straightforward. And then it's like, well, he's currently challenging birthright citizenship in the Supreme Court. And there's a debate happening. Like, so let's say Donald Trump runs for president again, is the nominee of the Republicans, and he wins the election. You think the Supreme Court is going to say no? You think he's going to be stopped by some institution? I think you're assuming something that should not exist, which is that Donald Trump is going to just go away because the law says he has to go away. Hasn't he demonstrated to you time and time again that he doesn't give a shit what they say? Like, doesn't that already exist? Like, doesn't that already let you know that it's not the case? Like, what are you fucking talking about, man?
What happens after? Thank you.
It's a really interesting question, especially because the Republican Party tried to recreate their own Trump with that was more controllable by the establishment, with a hyper focus on culture war, but also with, I guess, more of an intellectual veneer, but one that hyper focused on policy specifically. His name was Ron DeSantis, and that was an obvious failure. The more people heard about Ron DeSantis, the more they found out he was a goober and horrible to be around. Just really bad vibes in general. So I think that Donald Trump is, in a very similar way, Donald Trump is like, I say this jokingly, but Donald Trump is white man's Obama, where Barack Obama was incredibly charismatic. And with all of that talent, with his rhetorical skills, he was able to commit Americans to a campaign of hope and change, despite the fact that his governance was still very much the same third-way neoliberalism, having Republicans in his cabinet, things that Kamala Harris also pushed for. And Democrats have tried to recreate that over and over again, and they have not succeeded. And I think the Republicans will fail in a similar fashion as well. So there is a real holistic problem within the Republican Party because they've leaned...
I am just not a person who buys into the nothing ever happens narrative. There's a genocide going on that we would have... If you told me that this was going to happen in 2022, I would not have believed it. I would have said, nah, that's too extreme. They're going to continue the slow strangulation of Gaza. Maybe there'll be a mowing the lawn war. If you had told me the scale of what's happening in Gaza now in 2022, I would have thought it was impossible. I just completely disagree. I think that everybody's way too constrained in what they think is plausible, even so-called radicals. And I don't know what to do to wake people up, because it's always going to feel like the next logical step. It's never going to be all at once. And when all at once happens, it'll be too late to do anything.
So much into the most insane parts of their base. And when I say insane, I don't just mean like right-wing reaction. I mean literally insane, like QAnon, things like that. Like people who just like legitimately think vaccines make you gay and autistic. Like that is not sustainable. And so I don't know what will happen after Donald Trump leaves power, because I don't know if J.D. Vance will be another Ron DeSantis, or if he will actually be able to commit to, I don't know, whatever happens, whatever fascist future we are foreseeing for America. But I do think that there is a real crisis in the Republican Party as well. We saw that in the midterms, except instead of taking advantage of that crisis, the Democrats seemingly still found a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah, remember putting their card up right there with the glasses? Yeah, yes.
Is the card a flex?
No,
it's like, yo.
It's just easier to distinguish.
Hi, Sasan. I was wondering if you saw the kind of viral tweet this week about the Cambridge PhD with the olfactory ethics of prose and all the kind of the anti.
Oh, she was in Cambridge?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
And it made me kind of think about fascist anti-intellectualism, and then kind of wider about the sort of place of universities in a wider leftist movement and going to university. I think that's kind of relevant for all of us. And I was just wondering if you had thoughts on that generally.
Yeah, that was so interesting because I think like the right-wing mind is so baby-brained in many ways because they think like, you know, what you're supposed to do at like an English lit PhD is talk about how sick the Odyssey is. Like that's what they think. And I saw a lot of people criticizing this person, being like, "Oh, why is this hyper niche, like hyper specific thing that you focused on for your dissertation?" It's like that's what you're supposed to do. Like, and I mean, in that intellectual examination, you end up uncovering certain truths that you never would have thought. And I see a broader problem with the way that the right looks at all matter of scientific inquiry. And it's very frustrating, and it's also very damaging when you have Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy talking about the Department of Government Efficiency, named after Dogecoin. I mean, it's idiocracy. Like, we literally are living in idiocracy world now. But one thing that they are constantly, like they've been constantly pointing to is, why are we spending, you know, $2 million on like raccoon piss? And it's like, yeah, you probably don't understand why the government is doing that, but like my immediate reaction to that isn't like, oh, these dumb woke scientists are doing that. Like, there's probably a reason for it. And then lo and behold, you find out like, no, there is actually a reason for it. It's like trying to figure out new methods of warding off predators without while using pheromones that are not necessarily dangerous to the environment, right? So this is really scary when you have these people that are in control of the funding mechanisms of the government, and their stupidity is going to, I think, shut off a lot of scientific research, and I'm very frustrated by that. But I don't know where we go from here, really. I just hope that maybe you'll jiggle some keys in front of them and their attention will focus on something else, hopefully, because, yeah, God forbid you let these guys run the show. I mean, it's gonna be awful. But it also, I mean, I guess is similar to Nazi Germany as well, where they were like very desperately trying to find, trying to dampen the way artistic expression worked, and they were like really hyper focused. They thought like modern art was degenerate, and they wanted to recreate more orthodox versions of art, and obviously that was a failure. So I think when there's a will, there's a way, and hopefully people will overcome these problems.
Idiocracy is a term I should use more. Yes, remember here. This is the last question, I believe.
These questions, by the way, I don't know what he's gonna ask. Okay? These questions, I will admit, have been a lot more policy focused than the Cambridge ones were. I don't know what was going on.
Why is he giving so much heat to Cambridge? I guess there were more Destiny simps at Cambridge.
The Cambridge ones were literally like, I saw a YouTube video of you 5 years ago where you were making a joke that I'm taking seriously. Why did you say that? And I was like, I mean, it's a joke.
I did have some quotes I couldn't get to.
Oh, damn, you were ready.
I was ready, but I was like, I'll be nicer.
Someone honestly asked me, like, why do you think Crimea belongs to Turkey?
Wait, you got asked that at Cambridge?
Yes.
We are the better place.
That was, I mean, yeah, so far it's been great. I don't know what he's going to do. Someone didn't even have a question. My last question at Cambridge was, why do you call yourself a socialist when you have a house?
Wait, that should be like a t-shirt quote.
I mean, yeah. I don't want to push back on any particular kind of one thing you've said, but as you've just alluded to, I think there are quite a few things that you bring up against you, which I think you say in jest, kind of, I see where it comes from. But do you think at times it's proved kind of damaging and kind of unconstructive with some of the things you've said in the past? Particularly people bring up kind of very popularly kind of what you might have said about 9/11 or October 7th.
Okay, that was the quote that I had.
Oh, you were going to ask me about America deserved 9/11? I mean, so, no, you're right. I agree. I think it comes with the format for the most part, if we're going to be super serious about it. Like,
I think, you know, the reality is when you're talking about politics unfiltered for 5 hours plus a day, you're eventually going to reveal, you're going to get passionate and you're going to get hyperbolic and you're going to get fired up and you're going to get angry and you're going to say things that you might not have said if your people are like, this is your formal position that you must adopt from any and all time and you're never allowed to change it and people are going to use this to represent you. Then, like, that's not plausible. No politician could do what we're doing. Nobody could do this and be a politician unless you have voters that are really okay with you speaking off the cuff. All right. And I think there's a desire to treat streamers in particular like politicians. This is something that I've noticed quite a lot lately, which is people try to treat me and Hassan and Denims and Shonda Black and Gremlo and Vio and Frogan and God knows who else. I'm not trying to leave anyone out. Like we're politicians. Like, oh, you said this you? And it's like, yeah, I said that, bitch. And what's your point? America deserved 9/11. What does that mean? Like, that's what people should be asking you. Because I'm not running for office where it's like, he was offensive. He was offensive. Aren't you offended? He represents you. I'm not representing anyone but myself. So who are you scared? And I think this is kind of a Gen Z thing, and which is like, they're used to the panopticon of social media. So they approach social media like it's a representation of the self rather than the authentic self. Like Generation Z has figured out how they're all little politicians. They're all little marketing guys. You see what I mean? Like, to Generation Z, you have a private self and a public self. They're all little politicians. They're all little marketing experts because of the logic. So they don't want to be cringe. They don't want to say something that, you know, they all see it as like, oh, you authentically spoke on social media. That's you fucking millennial boomers, you know, you cringe lord. You're not allowed to authentically like things. That's the thing you keep very private. You keep that self to that, you know, sex is very private to them because they're all little politicians. They've been programmed to be little politicians, and they see when they see people not operating in that same way, they think they can cancel you. They think they can go, aha, look at this, look at this, look at this. He's not acting like a politician. It's like, he's not a fucking politician, bitch. I don't give a fuck. That's why I can never be canceled by Generation Z. I can never be humiliated by the internet mob. They can't do it. It's impossible because I just don't give a shit because you don't have any power. You legitimately don't have any power over me. You have no power over me. You can't do anything to me. You're weak. And like, I'm glad that I learned that very early on in my career. My career is a career of perseverance and substance. I prove that people care about substance more than everything else. Like the fact that I am one of the most popular streamers on political Twitch shows you that people care more about substance than they do shapes and colors. They literally do. There are so many people that try to do shapes and colors shit who are pretty good at it, who don't succeed because people don't give a shit about that. They actually want to learn stuff. And they find it refreshing that I don't give a fuck about that. Now, I am coming to the realization that I need to put at least some more effort into it. And I am doing it in my very slow, like a snail project, right? I am working on it. The in-ear monitors, the new camera, the rebuilt studio, the maybe buying a couple clothes for my wardrobe, the, you know, eating healthier, all of this. You know what I just did, chat? So I have health insurance this year. I made sure to get health insurance and I signed up. I downloaded the app on my phone. I picked a primary care doctor. I'm actually like doing the things, you know, I'm starting this past like week and the past 8 days, I've been eating very healthy. Like I'm going to get myself an appointment to go to the doctor. Like I'm actually starting to do this. I have like people that are helping me with redesigning the studio. I'm talking to people about lenses and cameras and I have people coming over and helping me with things. I'm actually doing the things that I say I should do. And you know why I'm able to do them? Do you want to know why I'm able to do all these things? Because I'm procrastinating something that it's even more important. But it's only in my own mind. The more important thing that I'm procrastinated is something I just invented. So I'm now like taking care of all this other stuff because I invented in my own brain something else that I'm procrastinating over. Isn't that amazing? I'm using shame and anxiety to overcome my ADHD, but it's just totally invented. And so I could also just realize, like, I could also do this thing where I'm like, yeah, that's not real, and just relax. It's amazing. We're tricking myself into productivity. It's amazing. Are you diagnosed with ADHD? No. I don't have anxiety, though. I don't have anxiety, though. The thing that I do use is my own narcissism. So, like, here's a trick. I'll be like, okay, yo, so-and-so, why don't you come over to my apartment, you know, or come over to my house, next Friday. And then I now have this, like, shame where I'm like, I can't have this house be a mess. I gotta vacuum. I gotta do the laundry. I gotta get fresh towels. You know, I gotta clean up the bathroom. And so my narcissism forces me to do, like, a deep clean because somebody's coming over to my place and I don't want them to see how I really live. You know what I mean? So I keep doing that and now I'm clean guy. Because I keep doing that, because I'm social, I keep forcing myself to deep clean the house. And I'm now actually completely clean. Because I want people to come over and be like, wow, this is pretty good in here. You know? It's not so bad. That's the secret. I low-key gaslit myself into believing I'm someone who enjoys working out regularly. A year and a half later, I'm now actually that person. I think for me, habits are the things that really work. Like, streaming is like such a perfect ADHD productivity trap for me, where it's like, okay, I've invented this whole thing that I'm doing, but I make it a rule, and now I'm like following my own invented rule, and it's fucking great. And then I also have the freedom to just be like, meh. But here's the thing. Because I made this a rule, I have to have a very high bar for me to go meh. I don't allow myself to get into the like, I don't really feel like it today. If I have something that I really need to do, then I'll cancel the stream. Like, if I actually have something important, then I will cancel the stream. But I don't allow myself to do it for like bullshit reasons. I like don't allow myself to not do what I'm supposed to do. And it's very great. It's so awesome to have that freedom, but also the self-discipline and putting them together. And so I'm trying to do that with more and more things. My next thing is getting back into the gym. I want to get back into the gym. I think in my long-term goal is 18 months from now, I want to fight. I want to be able to fight again. I used to box when I was 18, 19, 20. So I'm 40 now, 41 now. So I want to get myself ready. I want to stealth get in shape, get in boxing form. And then I'm probably going to try to fight people very, like, you know, immediately. Like, let's do a boxing match like next month, and then just try to go and hurt them as much as I can. That's basically my plan for the next 18 months. I want to do this very stealth though. I want people to keep calling me fat and everything for the next 18 months. And when we do, whoever I fight, I'm going to in a boxing match. In a sanctioned boxing match, my plan is to go in there with a pure grudge match for the purpose of hurting them. And that's kind of my long-term plan. And I'm going to be focusing on that. I've done jujitsu. Like, the thing about me that is something that I know is that I actually can take a punch quite well. So if I could get people to brawl with me, who are of similar size, they're going to get hurt. So I'm going to do that. That's my main goal, is to just trap someone in a corner and just go and just brawl. So this is my plan. This is weird. No, it's fucking awesome. Is this something to brag about? I mean, I'm not bragging. My nose is Thor damage. Also, yeah, I've broken my nose a couple times. It is what it is. A good way to keep something secret is to announce it to 4,000 people. Who gives a shit? It's not like it's gonna matter. It's not like this is gonna matter. It's not like people are gonna go like, oh, I need to start getting in shape and Chase Mike challenges me in 18 months. Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's going to be like, oh, you know what? I need to be ready. And I'm just going to turn down every challenge until I'm ready. I was unbelievably self-critical and unfair to myself for a long time. I told my friends I wouldn't believe my love was unconditional if they saw me being mean to myself over the things they did. I totally get what you mean with the self-shame to become better. I mean, it's not real shame. It's just, it's all a construct. Like, I'm down 15 pounds in January, and literally all I do is walk 1 to 5 miles, 1 to 2 miles, 5 days a week, and complement that with 1 to 10-minute resistance band workout. Last 3 weeks, I've incorporated cycling 8 to 10 miles on Sunday. No weights, no crazy high intensity. I'm kind of planning on doing, I want to do more high intensity stuff, but I don't think I can do it right now. I want to challenge myself of, you know, my sister is a triathlete. My dad was a Division I athlete. And so I need to get myself back. I need to get myself back to that level of in shape. I've been pretty lazy for the last, like, let's be honest, since 2014. So I need to like get out of my depressive, lazy cycles of comfort. I want to do more extreme shit. Well, who the fuck has time to walk 2 miles 5 days a week? A 10-mile bike ride takes no time at all. And 2 miles is like, if you walk that, yeah, you're talking about like, 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how fast. So that is definitely something that you could work in. You're telling me that you don't waste 30 minutes every day? Really? You don't have a free 30 minutes? You're lying. Bro, I promise hot yoga will get your ass torqued up. Yeah, diet is the most important factor. No, I'm going, the part of like the main reason to go like get back into the health is to just, I want to approach this in an organized and methodical fashion, and not just, you know, obviously I don't want perfect to be the enemy of the good, but I want to have a good plan, right? I want to have a good plan. I don't want to waste time. Just test yourself, jump in it. Don't think you could do something when it's just fucking exercise. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. You just got to find a program you can stick with, and then you can iterate. Exactly. Wait, let's get some Bill Burr.
I saw these clips of ICE going in and just fucking rip.
Okay, well, I don't know why YouTube is like not loading.
And then sadly, I saw these clips of ICE going in and just fucking ripping these people out of their homes, and mothers and grandmothers and children screaming, no warrant. If fellow U.S. citizens are like, what are you doing? They like intimidate them, fucking arrest them and shit. This is like Gestapo type of stuff. And it just blows my mind that there's a certain ugly segment of the American population that's enjoying watching these families getting ripped out of their homes. And you somehow think that America is going to be better if this is done. Like, so what? So they took those people out. They're taking these brown people out that are living week to week, and somehow you feel like if they get them out of the country, your boss who's not paying you a living wage will suddenly start paying you a living wage. What would be a great thing is everybody read up on the history of these fucking assholes that have run these companies. They have not wanted to pay Americans a living wage ever. They've never wanted to pay us a living wage. And the only reason why they do is because there's laws. And the only reason why there is laws is because people died during protests to start unions. And these fucking psychos that run these companies didn't want to pay a living wage. And eventually they took their factories out of the country so they could go back to not paying a living wage in the form of sweatshop labor. And now they're eventually working their way towards this. The same billionaires that didn't want to pay in the 1800s, way back to the feudal system. They've never wanted to pay you. They don't want to fucking pay you. And they just keep blaming people that don't look like you, that don't have any money or any sort of control over your life. And my people keep believing it. It's unfucking believable. Immigrants are not the reason why you can't make your rent. You can't make your rent because the guy that fucking employs you is not paying you enough money. He's not keeping up, or she's not keeping up with the rate of inflation. The sad fucking thing is there's enough money, there's enough food, there's enough shelter for everybody. But these super rich cunts want too much for themselves. And they're heartless. They don't give a fuck. And when you start to tell them, hey, you're not paying us enough money. They go, oh, look at those fucking brown people over there. If we could just get them to stop jumping over a wall or get them out of their houses. If we could tear apart their families without a warrant, then I would somehow magically start paying you enough money where you could live comfortably and have health insurance. Unreal. And I got to tell you, these fucking people that are just watching this stuff, and you don't think that eventually, if you just co-sign on an agency being able to do that, just barge into somebody's fucking house like that, just start lining people up, asking questions, no warrants, just total intimidation, right? If you're signing off on that, you have to understand, do you really think that that's just going to stop there? Let's say they got all the illegal immigrants out of this country. That work still has to be done. So now who's doing that work? And what is the rich guy doing? Do you think he's going to pay American citizen wages? Is he going to let one nickel roll out of his pocket? Has that been your experience watching these super rich people? Just out of curiosity. Anyway, it's tragic. This is just a really mean, ugly, I can't even say period, I guess exposure that it's.
No, I think that there's one thing that left-wingers do, which is just totally wrong, which is they go like, no, this is nothing different. It's just mask off. And it's like, no, the fact that they had to wear a mask is different. The fact that the mask can come off and people feel confident is different. The fact that what you're going to see is a lot of people that wouldn't have believed a certain thing or done a certain thing. Now they see people mask off and now they do it. Or there is even social milieus that are created where people that otherwise wouldn't do evil shit are now going to. This is worse. I'm sorry. It's worse now than it was before. Did I say doo-doo? I said doo-doo, but don't laugh. Are you a Fallen H3 fan? Are you a Fallen H3 fan, Skin Job? You can admit it because you laughed when I said doo-doo. Are you a Fallen H3 fan? Admit it. Admit it. Admit it. You're a former Kaka Klein fan. Oh, I'm kidding. I shouldn't do that to you because you're a tier 3 and you're my best friend and you've been here for 28 months. You're not a Fallen Ethan Klein fan. You should have lied just for the comedy and it would have been funny, but you're my best friend. Oh wait, what the fuck? What did I do? Oh, I have it open twice. Okay.
Just brought all of these super fucking overtly racist nationalist psychos to the forefront. It's even happening in like stand-up comedy. It's fucking wild. You know? I don't understand. Who knew there was this many fucking people out there that felt oppressed if they couldn't be this fucking hateful? Anyway, but that doesn't mean you can't be a good person. You can combat all of this shit. And I don't know. I feel like some leaders are going to emerge. But like, this is what happens with extreme behavior. If you look, where was the left like 5 years ago? When they were doing the theys, and those, and if you didn't use the right pronouns, all of a sudden your fucking career was in jeopardy. They went insane to the left.
By the way, this isn't even left wing. This is just, by the way, the fact that people call this left wing is one of the most damaging things to the left. It's not left wing. It's radical liberalism. It's people doing interpersonal shit to get advantages, okay? Whether it's displaying themselves as the most virtuous and educated person on the most cutting-edge social media academic speak, or it's people trying to get interpersonal advantage over a person so they can get advantages and boosts for themselves in their own life. It's all that it is. It's not left wing. That's not left wing. Left wing is about overturning power in our society and giving it to the hands of the people that actually produce the value of society. It is about changing the means of production. That's what left wing is, okay? It is not left wing because you are, going around chasing people saying, did you misgender? They're they, them. Like, that is called being polite and being accepting. It has nothing to do with left or right. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You could be a right-wing person who respects pronouns. It doesn't make you left. It's just called being polite and not an asshole and respecting people that you could say that, like, understanding gender is left wing and the right wingers have, reactionary ideas about gender. And that would be true, but that's not left wing. You've just turned left wing into everything that's annoying. Congratulations, you have successfully helped the right again.
So fucking far to the left. So now this has to happen. It went so far left towards the end of the last decade that these psychos on the right think they're in the middle and that they're rational and that they're not the right, the conservative, whatever you want to call it, the right-wing version.
Basically, by the way, chat, what Bill Burr is saying here is basically he's just explaining his anxiety, which is like you go up there, you make a joke, and then a bunch of people yell at you on social media, and there's no boss you can call to make it stop, right? Like a bunch of people are going to yell at you at social media. A bunch of people are going to get clout off of you by complaining about you. And people are going to be mean to you on social media, and you won't be more popular than you were the day before. And that's the anxiety that anybody who is a performer or artist felt under that kind of social. But who gives a shit? Nobody fucking gets canceled. You have fucking people that are sex offenders and they're not canceled. Nobody canceling is a fucking myth. It's not. It's a fucking myth.
Of what they dealt with from the left, you know, in the late 2000 teens, whatever the fuck you call them. It's insane. And we went flim-flam guy to a guy who should be in a home, back to a flim-flam guy. This is just like the nightmare that keeps giving.
I mean, he's right. I do think rad libs are very annoying. I mean, I'm defending the rad libs, but they hate me. They call me Mike from PA, the class reductionist, but who's also a liberal, but also is a white nativist, because I've said things before like the idea that America, there's no problems with the physical redistribution of millions of people from one region to the other is some sort of white nativism, but it's just like basic common sense. And when I say that, I mean, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. When you are walking down a street, there is a certain capacity that sidewalk has before no one else can walk down that sidewalk with you, before people need to start spilling out onto the road. You understand that, right? Like there is an infrastructural limit to the spaces that you are occupying. And if more human beings occupy those spaces have to be retrofit. They have to be upscaled. They have to be densified. There has to be more infrastructure in order to accommodate a higher percentage of people. That is what. So when millions of people transfer from one place to the other, the infrastructure has to change. And observing that is not racist. That's just observing fucking reality. Like, you idiot. People will call me that. People will say that is a racist thing to say that there is any downside to any transfer of population from one place to another. And it's like, that's not racist. That's just how you make sure the immigration doesn't have a backlash, by building it up, by building up society and accommodating the infrastructure and building more hospital beds and building more schools and building more apartments and building better public transit and densifying to accommodate that population. And if you don't change the infrastructure, then it's going to be strained. And that is the problem we have in America, is you have basically a left that's incompatible with discussions that are basically founded in a materialist analysis. You could only have these kind of virtue signally discussions. I'm just unafraid of those people.
I'm talking for
Paula Deen, 11 years after scandal that got her canceled. This is the best example. She's been keeping up her magazine. She has a Fox Nation show. She wrote a it seems like she's doing really well. She has like what do you mean? It doesn't seem like saying the N-word really canceled her that hard. And by the way, a white woman from the South screaming the N-word, I mean, if there's anything that is insane and should get you pushed from polite society, that's it. And did it? It did not. She got hired at Fox News.
8 to 10 hours. Sometimes, you know, tensions get high, and I get emotional. I'm very passionate. And I say things that can be very easily misconstrued, right? Even the 9/11 quote is something that is virtually not even a point of contention in academic literature if you discuss it as a point of blowback. Like, if you meddle in the affairs of the world, inevitably the very same people that you propped up as brave mujahideen that were anti-Soviet warriors on the road to peace. That was the way that Osama bin Laden was featured in, I believe, 1993 on a famous Independent article. Yeah, those guys are gonna inevitably be like, I'm gonna use the training and the guns you gave me against you. And that was what I was talking about in that situation, but did not communicate it in the best ways possible. And especially with the clickbait culture that we now have, whenever I talk about complex, nuanced, and dense geopolitical issues, you can always make it, you can always cut it in a way where you can make it seem like I'm saying the exact opposite thing that I'm actually saying. But I think ultimately, the way I feel about it is like I would rather still maintain somewhat of a humorous nature, even if it's like gallows humor. Not saying that about the 9/11 thing, but just in general, you know, instances where I've like been clipped out of context or been taken seriously when I'm very obviously joking. I don't believe Crimea belongs to Turkey. Like in moments like that, I would rather continue doing my coverage in the way that I'm doing it and not succumb to the naysayers and people who wish to try to stop me and smear me and cynically clip me out of context in an effort to try and censor me. I'd much rather continue doing it the way that I'm doing it, because I feel like it would be very boring. There are a million content creators out there who engage in the dense subject matter with the academic tone that it deserves, right? I'm trying to make things more entertaining. I'm trying to make things more appealing. And I'm trying to educate people while also...
What did you make now? A hand pie? Strawberry with rose water and pistachio. Ooh. 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 I think it's just like, it's like a puff pastry. It's like, this is the equivalent, chat, of a bougie Pop-Tart, if I'm being honest.
Persian Pop-Tart.
Bougie Pop-Tart. Persian Pop-Tart. It's like you take like some strawberry reduction and it has like, and it's just like puff pastry. It's really a bougie toaster strudel. A handmade toaster strudel is the best way to describe it.
Also, you know, sometimes making them laugh or entertaining them. So that's my that's my primary focus. And if things get misconstrued along the way, then it is what it is, you know? There's not really much I can do about it.
So that was the last question. Thank you so much for coming. Everyone just please remain seated while my guest and I leave. But that's Hassan Piker. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, I want to see more of it, chat. Can you read the comments? Sure. Very critical conversation to have at these times, even though it's a year old. It's not a year old, is it? There's only a couple. It's only like a few months old, right? It looks like Destiny dislikers are here. I don't see them. That's crazy. 0 views? I've never seen that. I've never seen that. That's crazy. 0 views? I've never seen that. That's crazy. We're doing a deep dive.
Finally made it to Silva 2, guys.
We're finding out all about him. He moved to Japan, but he doesn't speak Japanese. All right. We got some more. Another thing I wanted to watch from Hassan was him on the NBC. Oh, first he was mentioned on Seth Meyers.
Would be coming over to take me to a separate location. We arrived at
Leafs. Get out of here.
Klein and Destiny oftentimes become kind of conspiratorial, and they'll be like, there's so many secret Hassan fans and they're promoting him, and it's so true. All of Hollywood, the entire journalist news media is full of Hassan fans. You know what they're not full of? And this is literally true. Destiny fans. There are literally Hassan fans everywhere. There are no Destiny fans. There are no Ethan Klein fans. Like, that's literally true. I went to a party in Hollywood and multiple people came up to me and they were like, Mike, I saw what you said on the election day stream and it needed to be said about how I wasn't voting for. So like people came up to me like 6 months later at a party in Hollywood and were like, thank you so much for saying not to vote for Karis for the genocide. This is literally real. I've never, ever, not once in my entire life had someone come up to me and be like, Destiny is a good debater, don't you think? No, not once. I've been, recognized and talked to so many changing people's minds. We're now on every late night show. We're winning. Can you imagine throwing your career behind Israel? Like, how dumb as fuck is these pieces of shit? Loader box. I just get so pleased because Ethan Klein's just total failure is incredible. Finkelstein claims that Destiny's being paid to defend Israel. I mean, if Destiny's not getting paid, he's the only one. Ben & Jerry's is the one rich guy Ezra Klein writes about who only wants to do good things when the government, but the government prevents him. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks for showing me that. You think Ethan is paid? Yes. But I don't have any proof. I just think that.
The reason he's taking that position is because he's an anti-Semite. He is a white nationalist.
Hold on.
I want to lift him up. There are plenty of
No, stop with that nonsense, Jordan. Hold on. Listen.
How is it nonsense?
Okay, here's why. Because the people who are saying that, yes, including you, you're being intensely selfish. How could you not see that that's maniacal and intensely selfish?
Because they're not our allies. When have they ever shown to be an ally?
Right now, they're saying...
No, they're not. They haven't done anything.
Jordan, what the hell do you want them to do? Marjorie Taylor Greene says, I don't want to give any more money.
Because he says one thing, you're like, oh, let's listen to him. He hasn't done anything.
You say no. You're letting the Palestinians die because of your selfishness. It drives me crazy.
Jake, I have an award for running a ceasefire website that millions of people around the world have used. You're calling me selfish?
Yes, I am.
The reason he's taking that position...
TYT is legitimately dying out. TYT is legitimately dying out, and it sucks. I mean, they deserve it. It's just sad to see a progressive organization that so many people poured so much effort and love and money into kill itself because of the ego of two people. Basically, Jordan was saying that you can't trust Republicans on Israel who say, oh, because they're never going to do anything. And Jack was saying, no, we should uplift Marjorie Taylor Greene because she said not to give money to Israel. And he's like, dude, don't do that, man. You can't trust them. They're not going to do anything. And Jack was like, you have to. Okay, apparently Ethan Klein is making another video on his main channel because apparently his main channel hasn't lost enough subscribers. He wants his main channel to lose more subscribers. Why is this not productions? Like, what? Yeah, okay. What do you mean import new creator? What the fuck? H3 Productions. Result from YouTube. Thank you. Jesus Christ. Okay. Oh my lord! Oh my god! Holy shit! My god, that's bad. Negative 50K back-to-back months? Negative 50K? Okay. I'm sure. Okay, listen. I'm sure that Hassan is also losing subscribers because, I'm sure they're both losing subscribers because they're breaking up, right? Like Hassan is probably losing some subscribers because, the H3 people are leaving him and, H3 is losing subscribers because the Hassan people are leaving. Oh, wait, never mind. Hassan is having one of his best months of positive subscriber growth. Oh, wow. Holy shit. 20 million views. That's like one of his best months ever. Holy fuck. 20 million views on his YouTube. What the hell? Holy shit. All right, hold on. Let's go back to check the Ethan Klein one real quick. Why is it showing negative 151 million views? Why is his monthly gained views negative 151 million? Did he delete a bunch of shit? Like, what happened? Yeah, which we need to get rid of this off the chart so I can actually look at this. Okay, there we go. Okay, 2 million, huh? I guess he doesn't really make many videos on. So Hassan's main channel is 10 times bigger than than Ethan's main channel. Let's go over to the podcast where it's probably more 13 million. So let me get this straight. Hassan's secondary YouTube channel, which he barely ever produces anything for, it's just like edited stream clips, has 7 million more views a month than the H3 podcast, which is a natively streamed on YouTube. So I think we can pretty pretty safely say that Hassan is way bigger than H3 at this point. Like, I think we can call it. We can call it at this point. We can call officially, according to the numbers, the official winner is Hassan Abi on a unanimous decision. And that doesn't include the Clips Industrial Complex. If you include the Clips Industrial Complex, there's hundreds of more, there's millions and millions and millions of more views. And then Ryan Grimm, Dropsite News went on Ryan Grimm, you know, they went on Dropsite News co-founder Jeremy Scahill went on Hassan's stream. Look at the sign-up chart. Check out their Twitch. Negative 21,000 followers. 39 average viewers. Negative 30.1 followers an hour. So basically people are coming in to unfollow. Oh my God. They used to have a pretty popular YouTube. I mean, they had a couple pretty big streams on Twitch, and I guess they just gave up and went over to YouTube, huh? God damn. That's crazy. Is there a tracker of Instagram? Instagram monthly followers for the majority of H3's social media accounts. Ethan Klein down over 30K. Hila Klein down 20K. H3 podcast down looks like 5K. Teddy Fresh. Okay, hold on. Let's zoom in. Teddy Fresh down 7K. Dan looks like he's down around 500. Zach, he's down. Oh, he's been down for a while. He's been down. He's been losing followers for a while. Olivia starting to finally tick negative. Looks like around 1.5K. AB finally ticking negative. Deserved. Lena is also ticking negative. Around 690, it says. I personally don't want any of the crew to leave. In my opinion, I don't want any of the crew to leave. I want the crew to stay put, keep doing what they're doing, stick around, tie yourself, lash yourself to the mainsail, lash yourself to the mast, I guess is the saying. Go down with the ship. I think you guys are exactly where you ought to be. Speaking of all this shit, chat, I just realized something. We are 4 hours into the stream and I forgot to show. If you enjoy this content, please consider supporting it by subscribing. Because if you don't, Ethan Klein will feel good about himself. If you do not.
So I'm a communist and sometimes.
Oh, okay, thank you for being a communist. If you do not. Oh shit, I'm never gonna find this, am I? I'm never gonna find hater behavior too. Hold on. Clips from PA. You have hater behavior too, right? We're starting to pop off. Where's the hell is hater behavior 2? Fuck. That's hater behavior. Where's hater behavior 2? Did I miss it? This is very important for my shilling. I should probably save this. Oh, here. It's right here. It's the very first.
Mike from PA, to me, is a full-on grifter. One day, I'm going to do a video on this guy. He is the most pathetic dipshit on all of Twitch. And just to show you how easy this grift is, this guy is relatively successful. And he is not talented. He is vile. And he is cringe as fuck. What's his average view count?
Probably a couple K.
Couple K?
Does he really get a couple K?
Nice. And somehow he still succeeded. You know, he has 7,000 members or something. Every time I see that number, I'm like, whoa.
Chat, we need to push this. We need to push the membership numbers up higher because Ethan Klein literally watches. And anytime it's not going up, oh, it's right now 7,004. Every time this number doesn't go up, Ethan Klein feels good about himself. Ethan Klein feels good about himself.
I'm happy to say that his sub count is getting lower.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's closer to 8,000 before. I mean, every time I look, he has between 7,000 and 8,000 paying members, which is pretty disturbing, but it is what it is.
I gotta be honest, I don't even notice when Ethan Klein talks about me. I legitimately don't notice. Somebody has to tell me.
Mike from PA. 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 Mike from PA.
Mike from PA.
Mike from PA. Mike from PA. Mike from PA. Mike from PA.
The fact that these guys are so. By the way, I'm the one who pisses them off the most. By the way, I don't know why it is. I think it's because I just tell the truth, and I just say the truth, their numbers are declining. Their shit is garbage. I'm doing better than ever thanks to them. And, you know, also, it's not just thanks to them. It's also because I'm right about politics, right? Like, I predicted 49 out of 50 states correct. I told Hassan that, you know, Kamala Harris was a deep shit because of Gaza. Like, all my analysis bore out to be correct. Like, the reason people watch me is because I analyze things, I predict things, and then they happen. And you know, I give explanations for what the left would do to solve problems. I'm not just someone who follows around what's on Twitter or some shit. I have my own political background. I have my own analysis. You could show me and bring me stories, and when I react to things, I do it in a substantive way. That's why I'm popular. I'm not popular just because I'm a Hassan fan. There are literally millions of Hassan fans. If you want to start your own stream, I encourage you to stream. Go ahead. Give it a shot. See how you do. Okay, it's not just me being a Hassan fan and liking Hassan. That's a part of it. It's my pipeline. Hassan has been the most supportive person toward me of almost any other creator. He's brought me on the stream like 10 fucking times. We've gamed together. We have had, you know, he brought me on like the major election days. He brings me on his stream as a featured guest. I've been in his IRL shit. Like it is what it is. Okay, like. He has supported me over the years. He was one of the first people to ever message me before I started streaming about streaming on Twitch. On my first stream on Twitch, debating Destiny, he brought me on his stream to laugh at how much I beat his ass. Right? So like, yeah, no, that's true. I am very closely aligned with Hassan on a lot of shit, and he's been very supportive of me. But if you think it's just like, oh, I like Hassan and that's all it takes, you're fucking delusional. But the reason why they say that is because they're trying to cope. Because they are too stupid to actually do something on their own of substance.
Mike from PA?
Mike from PA. Mike from PA, to me, is a full-on grifter. One day I'm going to do a video on this guy. He is the most...
So anyway, all I can say is, if you want to piss off Ethan Klein, the single best way to piss off Ethan Klein is to subscribe at tier 1, tier 2, or even better, tier 3. Tier 3 subs count as 6 subs, but for the price of 5. And you get that beautiful golden star next to your emote in chat. Every single time I see that tier 3, for example, Autark Praxis, you're the best. I love you. You are my best friend. Thank you very much for subscribing at tier 3. You could also support the stream by gifting subs. There's a lot of people here working paycheck to paycheck. Parents of young children, college students, people on a fixed income because of retirement or disability. They're regular people struggling to make ends meet who might not be able to afford to sub. But if you gift them subs, they get access to clips, they get access to watching the mods, they get access to the emotes. And when the more people have emotes, the more we get promoted in all around Twitch. When people see the DSA Ls, the DSA Wilds, the DSA Raids, all that, you know, all of that shit helps boost us in the algorithm. And right now we have a hype train. The top sub gifter, the top bit doter, those people get a golden locomotive next to their name that, you know, becomes a permanent chat badge. I love my hype train conductors. The higher the hype train goes, the more we get promoted in the algorithm. The more we get promoted in the algorithm, the more Ethan Klein molds. Where else can you do this many things with $5 or $6 little dollars? Think about it. By subscribing, you support me. You piss off Ethan Klein. You piss off Epstein. You piss off all the worst people in the world. You are promoting me in the algorithm. You are fighting. You are doing so many things at once. There's never going to be a better opportunity for as little as $6 to push our objectives forward. And last but not least, and certainly the most important, is you're giving me money. And in my ontological framework, in my moral framework, when somebody gives Mike from PA money, that is the most moral action they can take. In my subjective worldview, giving me money is objectively good behavior, and you instantly become a good person. So you want to be a good person in Mike from PA's opinion? Give Mike from PA money, and I promise I will consider you a good person. Tally Hugh, thank you for the 10 tier 1s. Char2440, thank you for the prime. This is what we like to call chilling. All right, it is Friday Fun Day, chat. And so every Friday we get together and we watch a movie. This week, we are going to be watching Conclave.
The Pope is dead. The throne is vacant.
What happened? They say a heart attack.
You know how rumor spreads, and 1.25 billion souls watching.
Well done, no, Lawrence. It seems the responsibility for the conclave falls upon you. The supervision of this election. This is a duty I never thought I'd have to perform. They are sequestered, and they must be shielded from all news that may influence their judgment. You understand? No sane man would want the papacy. The men who are dangerous are the ones who do want it. That sounds ominous. I wonder if I could have a word in private. You look anxious. Everything under control. How has this been kept a secret for so long? We'll never find a candidate who doesn't have any kind of black mark against them.
Although we sisters are supposed to be invisible, God has nevertheless given us eyes and ears.
You should be careful, Thomas.
This is a conclave, Aldo. It's not a war.
It is a war. And you have to commit to a side.
There is one sin which I have come to fear above all others. Certainty. If there was only certainty and no doubt, there would be no mystery. And therefore no need for faith.
All right, chat. That was edited like an action movie. So, I mean, that is the most Hollywood trailer I've ever seen in my fucking life. Jesus Christ. But so we're going to be watching Conclave this Friday. And that will be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific in the Discord. I'm going ahead and throw the Discord. I'm not going anywhere, by the way, chat. We're just having some nice, fun transitions. So if you want to hang out with me and the chat, come hang out in the Discord. We will be watching for our movie night this week, Conclave, which is very relevant now that a Pope has died. Pope Francis died. So now we're on the... Now we have a Cubs fan who likes deep dish pizza. Actually, he's a White Sox fan, chatter. He's a White Sox fan. He needs to be asked what's his favorite cheesesteak spot because he went to Villanova. He went to Villanova, chat, which is a Jesuit college in Philadelphia. So he has... The Pope probably defends deep dish and likes cheesesteaks. The mystery of faith has been stripped. Did you see Theo Vaughn had a clip on the genocide? We did watch that. I want to say 2 days ago, right? When it first happened. All right, let's talk about Ethan Klein's second content nuke, and then we'll get depressing for the rest of the stream. All right? If you're like, Mike, I want you to cover depressing stories. Mike, will you cover more depressing stories? Okay, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it after this.
Issue lawsuit is some of the most disappointing internet turnaround beyond everything else. I think what's also been additionally disappointing is the lack of interest from people who literally farmed Ethan for years for things that were valid and things that were invalid, right? For years, because they knew that that was a way that they could butter their bread. Constantly making videos about Ethan decline, Ethan Klein's downfall. All of those drama slop tubers, the moment that Ethan changed targets, started attacking members of the left, at that very moment, every single one of these charlatans who did not actually delete any of their in previous videos, by the way. They're still up. They turned around and they offered full and unconditional support. Well, you know, Ethan is actually on the right side. He's on the right side of history. And none of them looked at the situation where Ethan was behaving in a way that was not only unstable, but also completely repulsive and indefensible, doing things that they normally would have loved if he was actually directing this angst or animosity towards, like, I don't know, Keemstar or whatever. And none of them said a single goddamn thing, because all of a sudden they were like, oh, well, there's a much worse villain here that's involved. And it's like, I don't know, Frogan and people like myself or people like Noah Samson. So that. But what's frustrating, okay, about all of this, everything that has unfolded, is also the lack of response from a number of different external content creators, because they're terrified of pissing off a guy who's willing to sue anyone and everyone. He's just a rich bully. That's it. He is a rich bully, and he's willing to use that muscle, use that money to try and silence anyone who correctly calls him out for doing shit. Do you understand? He's making the internet a worse place, which is so crazy, because his most pivotal, his signature achievement was to make the internet a better place by becoming a legal precedent setting, by creating a new legal precedent for fair use. And now all of that litigation, it doesn't even matter. Now he's trying to reverse those decisions. Have you heard that he's going to make another nuke on you that is most likely going to be very personal? If he were to go after your family, would you seek legal action? What kind of question is this, man? Ay, ay, ay. Legal battles of this sort is literally getting in the dirt, getting in the pigsty to wrestle with pigs. I don't want to surround myself with shit by doing so, okay? I think it's bitch made. He's already coming across as repulsive to his own fan base, the ones that remain that just want the goofs and gaffs. There are chatters who are permanently obsessed with drama who want us on to sue everyone under the sun. They want us on to sue Asmongold. They want us on to sue H3. They want us on to sue DHS. All they care about is drama, because legal stuff is drama. I don't understand, like, what entertainment you can derive out of suing people like this. I don't understand why that's fun. They just see it as blood sport. Americans are so litigious, dude. It is also crazy. It feeds parasocial because they feel like they're winning through you. Yeah, except you should already feel like you're winning through me if that's your goal here, because I don't even need to do anything. He's just making a fool of himself all on his own. You are not seeing the POV of a rich smarmy moron collapsing due to legal loss narrative. It's a fantasy because he'd be fine in the end, but that's the imagination. Exactly. It would be a long, convoluted, drawn out, and incredibly costly endeavor going band for band with a dude who has tens of millions of dollars while I'm in the process of trying to conduct my regular affairs and keep doing news, whereas his content thrives when he's in legal battles like this. This is what he does. This is his entire content. I want to say that the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I wanted to talk about this. Actually, Hassan's wrong. The only reason why Ethan Klein became famous and his podcast took off is he was losing the juice for, like, the stupid fucking Vape Nation shit was ancient history. That's what got him his initial burst of attention and support. And then he tried to do like skits and they were not very funny, right? But what got his got him that extra level of support was the fact that he was able to become the face of YouTube fair use at the same time that kind of like, SOPA and other movements were happening on Reddit. And so Ethan Klein kind of became the face of the, old internet, the kind of libertarian, the kind of the anarchist, really, internet of like disrespect for intellectual property. Like the old internet, like if you're not young, if you're not old like me, in the old internet, we used to pirate like crazy. We would get cutting edge video games, we'd torrent. We would steal all our music. We would steal movies. We would steal everything. All right. We would just people didn't pay for streaming sites. Some people still do that. Shout out to all of you people with a Plex server. But that used to be what everybody did. Everybody used to do
That's what it was, the culture of it. And now we've switched to a different type of culture. And like Ethan Klein, the reason why he got so famous and got so much support was because he was seen as somebody who was fighting the good fight for fair use, or, you know, the intellectual property, you know, you know, people were against intellectual property being enforced at all. They said that piracy was a victimless crime. That used to be the old internet. The attitude of the old internet was, if I steal a movie, if I download a movie, it doesn't hurt anybody. I wasn't going to pay for it anyway. So why are you calling me a criminal? Right? That was the you wouldn't download a car and everybody would be like, hell yeah, I would. Like, that was the attitude that Ethan Klein took advantage of. And so he became a champion, and it was across the spectrum. Everybody on the internet, whether you were left or right, was pro-piracy. They were pro-fair use. They were pro-uploading movies on YouTube. Can we talk about that? Part of what made YouTube so popular was that people started to upload episodes of television shows and movies onto YouTube, and they were blatantly pirating shit, and people would go watch them on YouTube in 240p. It was a piracy haven. People were uploading all sorts of shit, uncontrolled, and there was no intellectual property defense laws. That's why the DMCA was developed, because YouTube was growing gangbusters by stealing everybody's shit, right? Like, the YouTube that we have now is nothing like the YouTube that actually became popular, right? It was built on stolen intellectual property. Twitch is the same way. A lot of people got really big on Twitch, just blatantly stealing, like, for example, train wrecks. Train wrecks literally would be up super late at night in a almost pitch black room playing seasons of Top Chef. 480p videos from YouTube. He'd be watching seasons of Top Chef, not saying anything, not reacting, just sitting there in a pitch black room at 2 a.m. That's what got train wrecks actually to grow. And the other thing was this incel rant about how Twitch is for the guys that women didn't want. And he was tired of all the titted sluts or whatever ruining his website. That was the other thing that blew him up. But like, that's reality. What the fuck are you linking me? This is 65 million view YouTube. Remember when this was the best and most clever thing on the internet? It was all everyone was talking about. No.
Back another week. I mean, this is applied algebra. We stupid.
How about this? I'll push back the test a couple weeks if Dan teaches me something.
What am I gonna teach you? Teach? All I know how to do is dance.
Teach me how to Dougie. Teach me how to Dougie.
Yeah, I can teach you how to Dougie. And then, when you go to the club, you can be like, the club ain't even handle me right now.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. Will someone wake Steve up? Wake Steve up.
Oh my God! I was being chased by Freddy Krueger.
I gotta tell you, chat, I watched that because I have never seen it before. That was the worst 3 minutes of my life. I've never seen that before. I haven't experienced that before. So I didn't know. I was learning. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know old YouTube. I don't know old YouTube. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that's why Ethan Klein has the fandom he has. Nobody's like, this is the people that are still watching him are kind of, how do I put this? Not very bright. Like they found his channel in like 2015 and they're just kind of still watching it. And anybody who has any wherewithal or intelligence is kind of backing out because he just doesn't, like, what is his place now? And now he's being occupied by the lolcow crew. People who legitimately are there to enjoy his pain and his suffering and to make him dance to their tune. That's it. DHS is considering a reality show where immigrants compete for citizenship. Bro, I can't comment on this story. I can't comment on this story and stay online. You don't know how close I am to like just like, would I want to retire from streaming? We're going to have Mike Unleashed Day. Would I want to retire from streaming? I'm going to have a no censorship day for Mike. It's not, I don't know when that's going to be. Maybe if I have fuck you money, but I ain't doing it yet. When I own my own home and I've paid off all my student loans, maybe I'll tell you what I really think. Hey, Mike, have you heard about the Republican gubernatorial candidate for California? No. All right, time for the depressing story I promised you.
On a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
Today, Palestinians mark the 77th anniversary of the Nakba, which means catastrophe in Arabic, the mass expulsion of Palestinians in 1948 when Israel was created. Many Palestinians say they face a second Nakba today in both Gaza and in the occupied West Bank, where Palestinians marched in Ramallah to commemorate Nakba Day.
Despite all of the circumstances, we are maintaining our land and rooted here. Our right of return will never be forgotten, and Palestine will always be Palestine.
This comes as Democratic Congress member Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, the only Palestinian-American member of Congress, has introduced a resolution to commemorate Nakba Day with support from a growing number of co-sponsors, including Congress members Andre Carson, Summer Lee, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Delia Ramirez, Latifa Simon, and Bonnie Watson-Coleman. This is Congressmember Tlaib.
Hello, it's Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. And this Thursday, May 15th, marks the 77th year of Government of Israel's ongoing Nakba against the Palestinian people. We all know that in 1948, the Government of Israel destroyed hundreds of Palestinian villages, towns, and cities, and ethnically cleansed hundreds of thousands of Palestinians.
For more, we turn to a major new report released today by U.S. academics that analyzes Israel's actions in Gaza under the legal framework of the crime of apartheid. Citing dozens of experts, human rights organizations, and judicial decisions, it concludes Israel's treatment of Palestinians, quote, includes mass killing, arbitrary detention, torture, and the imposition of a legal regime that provides far less due process than that provided to Israelis living in the same territory, meets the legal threshold of apartheid, unquote. We're joined now by one of the report's principal authors, Sandra Babcock, director of the International Human Rights Clinic at Cornell Law School, where she is clinical professor and is joining us from now. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Professor Babcock. If you can talk about the significance of today, the day you're releasing this report, and your major findings.
Thank you, Amy. It's so nice to be back on the show. We are releasing this report that concludes that Israel has committed and is committing the crime of apartheid, which is a crime against humanity on Nakba Day, because Palestinians are now living through the most brutal phase of the decades-long occupation of their territory that the International Court of Justice has recognized is an illegal occupation. Our report confirms that there is now a broad international consensus that Israel is committing the crime of apartheid. We're not the first people to say this, but we are the first group of academics to analyze over 25 reports and judicial opinions against the backdrop of what is now happening in Gaza. And our conclusions are that Israel is not only isolating Palestinians into segregated enclaves in the West Bank, that it is subjecting them to a different legal regime than their Jewish settler neighbors, that it is not only subjecting them to arbitrary detention, torture, and killings, but it is doing this against a backdrop of policies that are designed to ensure the perpetual racial subordination of the Palestinian people.
Well, Professor Babcock, last year, in 2024, you co-authored a report which found that Israel's actions meet the international definition of genocide. So if you could elaborate on the links that you see between Israel's complicity in genocide and the fact that you found that it is an apartheid state.
I think there are important links between the two crimes. These are both crimes. They are both crimes that are recognized under the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. And both, what they have in common is a treatment of a group that is motivated in part by racism. In the International Court of Justice has found that Palestinians are a distinct national, ethnic, or racial group that is that is appropriately the subject of the crime of genocide. And what we found is that Israeli leaders have, for decades now, and this is leaders at the top echelons, the prime minister, the former defense minister, have made comments about Palestinians that evoke age-old racist tropes, comparing Palestinians to animals, dehumanizing them in a way that is very familiar to your previous guests who were speaking about apartheid in South Africa. What I was really struck by in listening to the South Africans that you just had on the show is when they described the features of apartheid South Africa. If you took out the word South Africa and you replaced it with Israel, that would perfectly describe the policies and laws that Israel has in place today.
I would actually say that Israel is worse than South Africa. South Africa was more of a colonial project, whereas Israel is more of a settler project. And what that means is that white South Africans, they didn't want black people to have equal status, but they valued black people for their labor. So they were constantly trying to divine a strategy of subjugation, whereas in Israel, the Israelis see the Palestinians as akin to vermin who need to be displaced and destroyed, and any reliance on Palestinian labor is grudging, and they don't want Palestinians to exist even in a kind of subjugated state. So I would say that Israel is worse than apartheid South Africa. Not to say that apartheid South Africa wasn't a horrific war crime or crime against humanity. It was. Apartheid is a huge crime. But I would say what Israel is doing to the Palestinians is objectively and distinguishably worse.
We don't often think of them as apartheid because our thinking of apartheid is rooted in our perceptions of how white South Africans treated black South Africans. But in fact, what is happening in Israel today is reflective of exactly that same treatment that we saw in South Africa.
I wanted to ask you, Professor Babcock, about the significance of you, along with dozens of other senior professors, human rights lawyers, taking part in this report. You're speaking to us from Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. Talk about that as protests continue across the country. Students who participated in encampments are arrested or put in ICE jails. Some judges have ordered those people released.
You know, Amy, it is a very tough time to be issuing a report that is critical of Israel. It has never been easy to criticize Israel. But this is what we do. We are human rights defenders. We are human rights lawyers. We are human rights professors. And if we can't call out genocide and apartheid when we see it, we can't call ourselves
guilty because I feel like I could be.
There is a double standard when it comes to Israel. When we criticize Israel, however, it is really important to recognize we are criticizing a state. We are criticizing a government. We are not criticizing its people. This is what we do. We call out human rights abuses and government repression where we see it. And those of us who have authored this report have been involved in human rights work in every single continent. And we do not make an exception when it comes to Israel. What universities have done is instead of protecting students, faculty, and staff who are standing up and taking a very principled stance and a risky stance to protest Israel's policies of genocide and apartheid, they are penalizing those students. They are subjecting them to disciplinary sanctions for peaceful protests. They are criminalizing them and jeopardizing their futures when under international human rights law, which protects the right of people who are protesting against human rights violations anywhere in the world, to their rights to freedom of opinion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. Instead of doing that, the university is criminalizing them. Instead of and I'm talking about universities in general. Mind you, I am not speaking on behalf of Cornell University. I'm speaking in my capacity as a professor who has witnessed the criminalization and disciplinary sanctions that are being imposed on students across the country. And that is wrong, and it needs to stop. Students are doing the right thing. They are standing in the line of fire. They are standing up for people whose rights are being subjected to the most horrific repression, who are being slaughtered every day, who are being starved. This is what we should all be doing. We cannot silence ourselves, and we especially cannot silence ourselves when people are trying to censor what we say.
Well, we want to thank you so much, Sandra Babcock, for being with us. Clinical professor at Cornell Law School, director of the International Human Rights Clinic, co-author of the newly released report, Apartheid in Israel, an analysis of Israel's laws and policies and the responsibilities
she's
of
going to get fired.
U.S. academic and other institutions. She co-wrote a new op-ed in The Guardian today headlined, "We are human rights lawyers. Our new report is clear. Israel perpetrates apartheid." Among those who co-authored that report are...
I'm tired of everyone walking on eggshells just because they're a quote-unquote Jewish state. They only represent themselves. It's like when you do condom hummus because before you say anything about Israel. Okay, here's what you need to understand. The reason why people walk around eggshells about criticizing Israel is because our country is full of Israeli agents and spies. And so if you criticize Israel, those agents and spies will use legal and illegal means to attack you. And everybody can see it because they say that's why they're doing it. So unless you're willing to fight Israeli agents for the rest of your life, most people get intimidated or they just don't care enough and they hope it'll go away. They have a bystander effect and they don't want to take on the fight. That's why when people do speak up about Palestine, if you're pro-Palestine, you don't attack them and try to fuck them up by claiming, oh, this person is hurting the movement. I'm gonna help the movement by trying to deplatform everybody who supports the movement. If you're pro-Palestine, you don't do that because you recognize Israeli agents are trying to silence people. That's why the reason why H3 says they're pro-Palestine is because that's the position that young people have, and they're lying.
Professor Susan Akram, clinical professor.
And I understand why like AB pretends to fall for it because he's getting paid a lot of money. AB is being paid a lot of money to fall for the lie. But are you being paid?
And director of the International Human Rights Clinic at Boston University School of Law. Thomas Becker, legal and policy director at the University Network for Human Rights, teaches human rights at Columbia Law School. And James Cavallaro, executive director of the University Network for Human Rights, visiting professor at the Yale Jackson School of Global Affairs. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give. Democracy depends on a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
We end today's show in Gaza, where Israel's brutal assault continues as Palestinians are commemorating the 77th anniversary of the Nakba, which means catastrophe in Arabic, when some 700...
Don't give E more attention, please. We get it. Bro, I'm literally talking about why people don't speak out on this. And Ethan Klein is part of the social and political milieu of why that is. There's a genocide because of people like Ethan Klein. It's not Ethan Klein himself that's doing it. He's just part of a greater tapestry, a network of people who spend their time and their energy trying to destroy pro-Palestinian advocates, both officially through Israeli government channels and then allied groups. I mean, he's part of the thing. Why do you think he was like so eager to help support the ADL in their deplatforming campaign?
100,000 Palestinians fled or were violently expelled from their homes by Israel's founders. Officials in Gaza say Israeli strikes have killed over 100 people over the past day, the majority of them children and women. Earlier today, at a state dinner in Qatar, President Trump said he wants the U.S. to take Gaza and turn it into a freedom zone.
Well, we're working very hard on Gaza, and Gaza's been a territory of death and destruction. The United States get involved and make it just a freedom zone, have a real freedom zone.
A freedom zone. This comes amidst mounting warnings of starvation in Gaza, which is the headline of our next guest's new piece in the London Review of Books. Alex Duvall, executive director of the World Peace Foundation at Tufts University, author of the book Mass Starvation, The History and Future of Famine. Welcome back to Democracy Now! Congratulations on the efforts of so many at Tufts and also outside of Tufts to have Rumeysa released, the Turkish student who was a Fulbright scholar and was taken by masked ICE agents on the streets of Somerville, Rumeysa Öztürk, now out of an ICE jail. Alex, if you can start off by laying out what you found in your new piece for the London Review of Books, Starvation in Gaza.
So just a couple of days ago, the United Nations Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, which is a real mouthful. It's a system, it's a collaboration of different humanitarian agencies. And they undertook a survey. It's the fifth such survey since the beginning of the war in the most recent war in Gaza, some 19 months ago. They undertook a survey of food security and malnutrition. And what they found was, yet again, that the majority of people in Gaza are facing emergency or catastrophic levels of food insecurity, and levels of malnutrition are rising fast. And this is directly related to the total blockade imposed upon the Gaza Strip at the beginning of March. And normally, in situations of famine, there are many complex factors that work in between the level of food availability and children getting hungry and beginning to die in large numbers. In the case of Gaza, it's actually, sadly, a lot more straightforward. There's really the only food that is available is that is permitted to enter by Israel. And those food stocks are running out. Rations are getting low, and the poorest and most vulnerable are beginning to starve and die.
Well, you write in your piece, Alex Duvall, that, quote, Gaza is an anomaly, a laboratory in which we will discover how much nutritional stress a population can withstand before succumbing en masse. So if you could elaborate on that and whether that is indeed the conclusion that was reached in the IPC report.
So a normal, healthy adult will last somewhere between 60 and 80 days, deprived of all nutrition. Now, we haven't got to that stage, but children perish much more quickly, and there are significant numbers of children who need specialized feeding, need food that cannot be readily prepared with just the food that is available, with the lack of clean water, the lack of electricity supplies. So we are seeing the most vulnerable already succumbing. And there are two scenarios that were laid out.
Can you imagine thinking that this was okay? Can you imagine living in this society and thinking that this was tolerable? I think one of the things that I'm really, can I be totally honest? Is that I know what you need to be in order to do what needs to be done, and I'm not that guy right now. And that's something that I've got to change. I have to make myself into the type of person that can do what we need to do to help fight against this. I'm entirely too much of a comfortable American first worlder. I got to change that, and I think we all do.
Out in this report. One is a situation in which the status quo continues. The level of blockade and the level of destruction continue unimpeded, in which case mass starvation, famine is inevitable. It is a question of weeks before that unfolds. The second scenario is if the Israeli-US plan for setting up an alternative humanitarian system comes into play. Now, the background to this is that Israel wants to debar the UNRWA and the United Nations and other international humanitarian organizations from being present on the ground in Gaza, and to put humanitarian provision in the hands of a new system, a new method, a new scheme, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And not many details are available about this, but what is known is that the plan is to have just 4 distribution centers in a small part of Gaza, supplying at most 60% of the population with minimum rations. And the food would be brought and distributed by members of this new foundation, including US private military contractors protected by the IDF. And it would simply be those rations and basic hygiene and medical kits. There would be no reconstruction of infrastructure, no specialized feeding for malnourished children.
In other words, what the U.S. is doing is killing off the weak and the vulnerable so that they could try to starve out Hamas members, I guess, and their families.
Now, even if this were to work, the conclusion of the IPC doesn't spell it out in quite so many words, but it's pretty clear. The conclusion is mass starvation would still unfold, just somewhat more slowly.
So, Alex, could you also talk about the fact of this concept of yours of surveillance humanitarianism? How does the aid scheme that you've just been talking about, that is proposed by the Israelis and backed by the Americans, fit into that? How precisely would it work? You've also said the plan is, quote, an individualized version of late colonial counterinsurgency.
Back in the 1950s, the British government mounted a anti-communist counterinsurgency in Malaya, and they explicitly called it Operation Starvation. And the idea was that every individual who was in a protected village would and was properly accredited with the authorities would receive enough food. And every item of food was counted going into those protected villages. And outside the protected villages, where the communist guerrillas were able to roam, no food would be available. They would be forced to starve. Now, what we're seeing is a version of this, a much more sophisticated version being implemented by
By the way, this stuff cannot happen without the U.S. Like, if this was just a civil war between various factions, it couldn't happen. But the United States is a world superpower with 350 million people and the largest, economy by nominal GDP. So the U.S. is able to, target 2 million people and do this to them. Like, we could exterminate a small, a couple million people here or there. And the only way for this to really be stopped is if China were to intervene and basically be willing to fight a war against the US. And they're not. So, and I understand, like, that could threaten nuclear war. Like, the Chinese are not going to sail their navy, thousands of miles and try to fight the US in the Mediterranean. It's just not a doable fucking thing. So who's going to intervene? Who can intervene? The Houthis trying. That's it. No one is willing to fight the US to stop this genocide. That is the actual fundamental truth.
Israel today. So clearly their intent is that no food should get into the hands of Hamas. And they have details about every individual in Gaza. So the plan, by inference, is that they would screen every individual and they would put accredited individuals who have no link to Hamas on the distribution list. Those individuals would be notified by text message to come to pick up the rations that they are allocated at a certain time in a certain place. And their identities would be verified by face recognition and other technologies. And then they would go, they would take those rations. Those rations would presumably be just enough for a few days, perhaps a week, so that there would be very little chance of them falling into the hands of anybody else. And then they would have to come back. So it is the welfare, indeed, the survival of every Palestinian family in Gaza would be dependent upon on a week-to-week basis on this type of surveillance and accreditation system. You can look at it as the sort of the counterpart of the surveillance and AI algorithms, the Lavender system that is being used by Israel to identify members of Hamas whom they are targeting for assassination. So they would have a counterpart for feeding the people whom they are prepared to keep alive.
Meanwhile, Alex Duvall, the New York Times is reporting some Israeli officials are privately admitting Gaza is on the brink of starvation and warn of the effects if the blockade is not lifted, since it takes a while, though there are thousands of trucks waiting outside to get in, to increase the humanitarian aid. And you have President Trump today in Qatar talking about is Gaza being a freedom zone controlled by the United States. Your response?
I'm not quite sure what President Trump means by a freedom zone, but I think it is clear across the board with the information that we have, and I have no doubt Israel has pretty much the same information. They may just dispute some of the details, but the overall picture is completely clear that something dramatic is going to have to be done to prevent mass starvation and famine unfolding in the very near future in Gaza. The situation cannot be allowed to get to the brink and then just pull back slightly from the brink, as has been happening when the Israelis opened supply routes and food distribution a year ago, and again with the ceasefire a few months ago. The population simply cannot withstand this type of pressure for really any longer without the utmost catastrophe unfolding.
Well, Alex, you conclude your piece by saying that Israel may, quote, do just enough to keep most Palestinians alive, but whether this prevents the destruction of Palestinians in Gaza as a group is another matter. If you could say what you mean by that, what do you imagine Israel will do?
So what we see in this process of, if it unfolds, this sort of individually targeted surveillance humanitarianism, is keeping individuals and families alive, but dismantling the entire structure of society. Now, clearly, the dismantling of Hamas is the political and military goal of Israel. But if it goes further towards the dismantling of society as a whole, which is one of the things that we often see during famines, it's not just that individualized biological suffering. It is the tearing apart of social bonds, the collective humiliation, the degradation of society. That is the deep trauma, the profound experience of famine. If that is allowed to proceed, then Palestinian society, as it has existed, will be irrevocably changed, torn apart, traumatized. And if Israel knowingly does this, then it will be culpable, not just of the war crime of starvation, but of the destruction of the Palestinian people of Gaza.
Alex Duvall, thank you so much for being with us, Executive Director of the World Peace Foundation at Tufts University, author of the book Mass Starvation, The History and Future of Famine. We'll link to your piece in the London Review of Books, headlined Starvation in Gaza. That does it for our show. Democracy Now! Currently accepting applications for Director of Technology. Check democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh. Democracy Now! is...
All right, everybody, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm going to send you over to VO stream. Hope you all appreciated it, enjoyed it. Don't forget that later today... Oh, wait, we got a new video out called China Wins. Off of... Everybody run and watch this video and like and comment. Everybody go watch this video, like and comment, and make sure that you're clicking my videos and liking those videos if you see them pop up on your YouTube discoverability page. Don't forget, later today, we are going to be watching Conclave at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific in the Discord. Movie night is tonight. So here's this. All right, everybody, stay safe out there. Solidarity forever. Have fun on your stream, Flex. I'm sending you over to VO. Stay safe. Solidarity forever, my friends. Free Palestine from the river to the sea. And I'll see you all tonight. Peace.